call to order the regular meeting of the Anchorage Assembly for September 10, 2013. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll call?
Mr. Birch.
Here.
Ms. Demboski.
Present.
Mr. Steele.
Here.
Mr. Stark.
Here.
Mr. Flynn.
Present.
Mr. Trombley. Here. Mr. Hall.
Here.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Honored to be here.
Ms. Johnston. Here. Mr. Honeman.
In transit will be here shortly.
Mr. Traney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Birch, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Mayor, do you have a report for us this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just a quick report. A couple very interesting meetings over the last couple of weeks since we last met. I had the opportunity to meet with the Chinese ambassador to the United States as he was traveling through, and had a great discussion with him. And as with many of the visitors we get, he's interested and very intrigued by Anchorage and Alaska, and wants to develop much better relations with our close neighbors. Had a meeting with the folks from Bass Outfitters, Bass Pro, and they're moving along with their project. They're looking like they'll be opening in the spring, and they reaffirmed their commitment to make sure and hire as many folks from that Mountain View community as they can, and looking forward to them opening and jump-starting the Glen Square Mall. And then over, it's starting, I think, in October and November, and you'll get the dates in a bit, but we're going to be conducting a series of conversations in the community similar to what we did with the budget dialogues a couple of years ago, and with the education summit. The folks from Viewpoint Learning are going to conduct some in-depth community conversations regarding sales tax. You know, we've kicked the idea around about diversifying our revenue, and every time it's been on the ballot, of course, there really was not a whole lot of community engagement. So we thought that it would be timely to see what the community really thinks about a sales tax, or a seasonal sales tax, a tax that replaces property tax dollar for dollar, a tax that generates new revenue. So all those variations will be included in the discussions, and it should be very informative for ourselves as the elected officials to see what the people are thinking out there. And that's it, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things that I want to share with the audience this evening prior to beginning the meeting is that item 14H, which is commercial third-party review. If you're here for that item, it will be open for public testimony this evening. However, it is going to be postponed. So just a heads up that we will be postponing it, but we will continue the public testimony at a later meeting. The public hearing tonight on 14K, which is resolution AR 213-230S on fluoride this evening, the public testimony. We are having a sign-up sheet, which is over here with Emily. I encourage everyone here to testify in regards to that, to sign up. What we're going to do with doing the sign-up is we want to try to keep from getting too deep in the aisle, so we'll be calling 3 people at a time. The clerk will call. Your name will be called twice if you miss the first one. So please sign up. And Daryl, I do want to share with you that I really have this box fixed tonight. They've assured me. There's going to be a yellow light, which is a 30-second warning. Of course, you've got 3 minutes to testify. So I'm hoping that our technology has caught up with us. With that, I'm going to move through our individual assembly member and committee reports, beginning with you, Mr. Birch.
No report, sir.
Ms. Dembowski.
Mr. Chairman, I want to point out to the body that I was made aware of a document today that talked about the Anchorage Service Patrol options. I know this body passed a resolution 2 weeks ago to fund 2 vans full-time, and Mr. Vacalis has indicated to me that there's some challenges going on right now, so there will be a meeting tomorrow between myself and Mr. Vikalis and some staff at 3:30, and I was hoping, Mr. Chairman, that you may be able to attend and maybe a member of the Public Safety Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I can attend at that meeting on behalf of the Public Safety Committee.
Well, that makes 3 of us, so don't anybody else show up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Mr. Steele.
No report.
Mr. Starr.
I have no report.
Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had previously announced that I wouldn't be able to attend this month's AMATS committee meeting. However, subsequent to that, and there's no relation between these two items, it has been canceled. So there'll be no AMATS meeting this month.
Okay. Mr. Trombley.
The Ethics and Elections Committee met last week, and we got the suggested code changes by the Ethics Board to deal with gifts for ASD employees, specifically teachers. Mr. Traney and I were there, and several members from the school board, and I think 3 or 4 members from the Ethics Board as well. And the plan of attack now is to take those changes suggested by the Ethics Board, put them in an ordinance form, and Dee Ennis was there, and so she will do that for us. And then I requested that the school board take it and review it with their policy committee, which is chaired by one of the school board members. And then I'd like the body, the school board, to pass a resolution in support of the changes or recommended changes, give that back to us, and then we will deal with that at the joint school board meeting between the Assembly and the school board. And then I'd like to, again, take that, move it into committee, the Ethics and Elections Committee, before we bring it to the body. And we're looking at probably sometime, if everything goes to schedule, sometime mid-October. And then just one thing to the constituents of East Anchorage in dealing with the picnic. There was the section of Muldoon where the old greenhouse property was cut off, was fenced off due to pesticides from the old greenhouse, and a public safety matter that came recently to the administration. So they cordoned off that section. So the picnic is still going to go on. They're just going to have to redesign stuff. But I met with Mr. Vikalis this morning to talk about it. And is Ms. Oswald and Tammy here? Apparently, or someone from Real Estate Services, I would like to I'd like to read the report of the damage to the soil, and if you guys could send that to me, I'd really appreciate that, so I can share more information with my constituents. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Trombley. Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a copy of a letter of resignation today, and the reason why I'm even mentioning it is because it's a member of our audit committee, Nanette Spear, and she's also the municipality's controller, and I passed a copy out to everybody, but I'm going to be really sorry to see her go, because she is our controller for the city, and we've been going through controllers pretty quickly lately. But anyway, we're going to have a replacement from the administration for the audit committee. Her last day is October 11th, but I just wanted to share that with the body since it is an assembly committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Traney, I've got you in the queue. Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Honeman.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for a few minutes of delay in traffic. The Public Safety Committee will be meeting next Wednesday, the 18th, and we should have, I believe, a draft of the taxi cab ordinance to discuss. I'm sure there'll be some spirited discussion about that. Perhaps some more movement towards the towing ordinance, which we've been working very hard with, collaboratively with the clerk's office, the Assembly Council, and the Ombudsman's office, as well as municipal legal. So my hat's off to everybody's efforts, and Mr. Traney and myself have attended quite a few meetings here of the recent past over all these issues. So look forward to that discussion and perhaps some issues involving, I'm sure fluoride will come back before our committee in a rather short period. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Honeman. Ms. Johnston.
Yes, I did try to schedule an enterprise committee meeting this week on Thursday for solid waste services, but Mr. Alcantara will not be here, so we're going to reschedule it, and it will probably be in the 1st of October, and I'll let you know. I think we have a date, but I can't tell. Maybe the clerk, I forgot the date.
It's Thursday, October 17th.
Is what we're aiming to do. if you want to put that on your calendar. Also, the last meeting of the Assembly, I called in and I was in Valdez, where we're having the summer session of the Alaska Municipal League. We had actually quite a robust discussion as far as legislative priorities and how we approach the legislature, knowing that the revenues are decreasing, and we feel that we need to have our priorities such that we're not asking more than that really there's money for. It was a robust conversation without a majority of our speakers because everybody was rained out, except I was on the last plane in. But we did have a great time in Valdez as far as I say, some great discussions, and Valdez was a wonderful host. Thank you.
Mr. Trainee.
Just going back to what Mr. Honeman was talking about on the 18th, we will have the taxi cab ordinance draft available to the Public Safety Committee, and then we've got a 2-hour work session, thanks to Kirk, scheduled for the 20th on the taxi cab ordinance for a semi-emergency to ask questions about it, and then we'll have it for this body to be set for public hearing on the 24th. So it's whatever date from that point in time you have it scheduled, Mr. Chairman.
Very good.
Just want to thank the Department of Law for the use of your attorney. Thank you, Dennis. He did a great job on this thing. We appreciate his help with it. I think he's on vacation this week. Good. Well, that's one thing I really appreciate is your ability to give us the attorney to do the code writing we need for this. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee. We're now to the addendum to the agenda. The chair would take a motion to incorporate.
Second.
Any objection? Seeing none, I will read the consent agenda into the minutes. We have 9C1 under bid awards, AM 513, runway lighting, electrical vault improvements, 9C2, AM 514, substation 8 to substation 16, fiber optic preparation and installation project, 9D10 under new business, AM 515, Ocean View Streetlight LED conversion, 9D11, AM 516, it's the GeoNex upgrade, and 9F under ordinance and resolution for introduction, 4 AR 244, State of Alaska grants in Senate Bill 18, scheduled for public hearing on 9/24/13, and that is accompanied by Assembly Memorandum number 512. That completes the addendum to the agenda. The chair would take a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. I will now take items to be pulled, beginning with you, Mr. Birch.
No items.
Ms. Dembowski.
Item 9, Delta 5, 9, Delta 6, and 9, Frank 4.
Mr. Steele.
No item.
Mr. Starr.
9 Delta 3 for a conflict.
Mr. Flynn. Mr. Trombley.
9 Delta 1.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Honeman.
I'll go ahead and pull 9A1 for reading.
Ms. Johnston.
No items, thank you.
Mr. Trainee.
The order been pulled, sir.
Thank you. I show that we have pulled items A1 for public reading, items 9D1, 3, 5, and 6, and item 9F4. Any item that I missed? Very well. I would ask that you please vote on the consent agenda except for the items that have been pulled. That motion carries unanimously. We have before us item 9A1. Who's reading?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, that item is approved. Ms. Johnston?
Yes, this is a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing September as Hunger Action Month in Anchorage, Alaska. Whereas the municipality of Anchorage is committed to the well-being of all Anchorage citizens, combating poverty, providing temporary relief assistance, and encouraging conditions of prosperity that reduce dependence on government are key to ensuring that each Alaskan living in Anchorage can look forward to a safe, healthy, and secure future. And whereas hunger and poverty are issues of serious concern in Alaska, where 9.9% of Alaskans were found to be living below the federal poverty line in 2010, and over 160,000, or roughly 14.5% of the Alaskan population, are classified as food insecure, which is defined as being unable to regularly procure a sufficient amount of healthy food. And whereas there are 36,000 hungry Alaskans living in Anchorage and about 12.6% of the Anchorage population. And whereas Alaska's anti-hunger network is a strong, effective, and informal affiliation of private citizens, the food industry, the faith-based, tribal, public, and nonprofit organizations committed to meeting the needs of struggling Alaskans, distributing millions of pounds of food each year through food pantries, soup kitchens, food banks, shelters, and other community organizations. The Alaska Anti-Hunger Network is estimated to provide emergency food for 1 in 10 Alaskans. And whereas member organizations of the Anti-Hunger Network will host numerous events in Anchorage throughout the month of September in order to focus great attention on hunger in our state. Anchorage residents of all ages are encouraged to find out how they can contribute their time, resources, and efforts to the cause of ending hunger of their communities. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Municipal Assembly resolves that September 2013 is recognized Hunger Action Month in Anchorage, Alaska, and urge all Alaskans to take action on behalf of our neighbors in need. Advocates can call 211 to find out about food assistance or pantry information in the neighborhood, or call the Food Bank of Alaska for ideas of how to join the anti-hunger movement in Anchorage, Alaska through the giving of time or other resources. Passed and approved by Anchorage Assembly this 10th day of September 2013.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. We now have before us item 9D1, and that is AM 491 Assembly Meeting Schedule, January through December 2014. Mr. Trombley?
Move to approve.
Second.
I just wanted to make the body aware that you'll notice that we have a meeting on November 5th, which is a Wednesday. I know we normally meet on Tuesdays, but November 4th is Election Day, so we decided to go ahead and move it to Wednesday, November 5th. I just want to inform the body and the public as well of that.
Comments? None. Any objection? Oh, Mr. Flynn?
Killing me on spring break again, sir. That's all.
Any objection? Seeing none, that item is approved. We have before us 9D3, AM number 497, Engineering Services for Capital Improvement Projects. Mr. Starr.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that instead of Mr. Starr because he needs to declare conflict.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn.
Yeah, as prior, this is a change order for a contract for property at Merrill Field. I have a client at Merrill Field that directly benefits from the improvements on this, and I have been exempted on the individual actions and would want to be exempted on this one as well. So maybe just abstain. I don't know if I need to leave the room, but your direction.
I believe abstain will be sufficient for this one. So with that, any other comment? Not, we will vote. That motion passes 10 approving, 1 abstaining. We now have before us item 9D5, AM 499, a software maintenance agreement with In-House Transportation.
Move to approve.
Second.
Ms. Dembowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if Lance is here tonight, but maybe the administration can answer these questions for me. Some of the programs that are listed in the document, let me just get to the right page here, such as Teledriver. Can you tell me, does this interface with Kronos?
We have someone for transit that will come down and speak.
Thank you.
Through the chair, Teledriver does interface with Kronos.
Okay, I have additional questions. If Ms. Cars will come down.
Hello.
Hi, Jody. Additionally, so Lucinda answered for me the first part. The other programs that are listed in the document, do they interface with Kronos, or do you anticipate them interfacing with SAP?
I don't believe any of them are going to interface with SAP.
Okay.
We start out the process with writing bus schedules. That's what the public sees. And then it develops work assignments. That information then gets passed into Teledriver. And Teledriver is, that's what interfaces with Kronos. It talks about when the drivers are working, what their days off are going to be, do they have a lunch hour. Also, the Sched 21 information drops into our Telerider system, which is our phone system. 24/7, you can punch through the buttons. And then the IMM is for customer comments, to be able to track customer comments and complaints. And then the PE is performance monitoring.
Okay. And what you've seen so far with your interface with Kronos for Teledriver, how is that system working? What challenges do you have, or is it perfect?
It's not perfect. Kronos actually pulls the 3 items from Teledriver. It pulls a lunch, and it pulls a penalty if we pay a penalty because of our union contract, and it also pulls what the schedule is. When do they clock in? When are they supposed to be clock in and clock out? If it's a straight, if it's a split, and their days off. There are challenges. For us to process Kronos, we actually maintain both systems. We maintain our Teledriver system, and we have to, because that's our management system. That tells us where our employees are at any one time. We are making headway with learning how to make the two work together. We do have hopes that right now we're under contract with Enghouse to come up and do an upgrade on our IVR system. We were hoping to be able to also do an upgrade of the Teledriver and have some of the things that we're having to do manually in Teledriver be more automated.
And some of those manual things are, is it such as correcting employees' time pay, all that kind of stuff?
Yes, because even Teledriver says the driver should work from here to here. If a driver comes in early for a meeting, or if they stay late because of traffic or an accident, Teledriver doesn't even do that. So there are some things that Kronos does better than Teledriver, and other things that Teledriver does better than Kronos.
Okay, and since I have you here, I'm going to push just a little bit more into a topic. One of the comments I've been hearing from department after department is they have employees that, because of some of the transition into Kronos, haven't been paid for an extended period of time. Do you have any employees that fall in that category that haven't been paid for time worked and are waiting on ER or HR or whatever department?
As far as an extended period of time, are you talking months or weeks?
No, I'm talking, say, more than 2 weeks. People that have missed a pay period because of the implementation?
When we find out about an issue, it's usually after the pay period close. So we work on getting the corrections made, and it doesn't often happen on the next pay period, but it would happen at the one after that. So it could be 4 weeks.
Okay. It could be 4 weeks. Do you have any employees that haven't been paid for time worked over 4 weeks?
Not that I'm aware of.
Would you mind following up and sending an email? And it's fine to do it through the municipal manager, but I'd like to know if your department has employees that have outstanding pay that they haven't been paid for yet.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Dembowski really asked some of the questions that I wanted to, but since you're there, Jody, don't feel bad, because there's challenges throughout this municipality of Kronos. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
No one else in the queue, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item 9D, 6 AM 500 railroad crossing upgrades.
Move to approve.
Second.
Ms. Dembowski?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the administration, this is just something that would help me. When I see some of these informational memorandums come before us, if there's documents that are referenced, can you please make sure they're attached? And then also projects that are referenced. Ron, when you put this together, it would be helpful. It says for railroad crossing upgrades at municipal streets. From a representative standpoint, it would be very helpful if you kind of identify where those are, so when these projects come up, we kind of have a clue. We can direct people, well, that's this type of project or that. That would be very helpful. If the administration would provide that, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Flint?
I'll get you a track chart, Amy, don't worry.
Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item 9F4, which is AR 244, State of Alaska Grants and Senate Bill 18. Ms. Dembowski?
I move to introduce.
Second.
Third.
Ms. Dembowski?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'm accurate in this assessment, but I want to ensure that none of the Project 80's money is included in this resolution. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Second point I'd like to make, when the Project 80's appropriation is presented to the body, would it be possible for the administration to give us a clear breakdown of project and corresponding monies?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Trini?
Administration, are you planning to separately introduce the Project 80's money, and then we'll set that for public hearing? And what's your time frame for doing that?
That's correct. Probably by the next meeting. We just received the assessments on the hockey rinks in terms of what it will take to rehabilitate the ice-making equipment, and that was one of the things that was not available when we requested the grant money. So now that we've gotten that information, possibly by next meeting, we'll be ready to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Gray-Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to the administration, I'm just puzzled as to why it took so long for us to get this resolution, considering the state budget began in July, and we usually get this document pretty quickly after that. So what was the holdup?
I think we're actually right on schedule compared to what we've done in the past.
Really? I don't think you are, but that doesn't matter. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We can agree to disagree.
That concludes our consent agenda for this evening. We are going to break for our dinner break. We will resume at 6 o'clock. I want to call the meeting back to order. What I would like to share beginning immediately is anyone that's here to testify in regards to the fluoride testimony this evening, we do have a sign-up sheet over at Emily here at the end, so please sign up for public testimony on the fluoride issue this evening. And with that, Mr. Mayor, you had a quick announcement?
Oh, just to make sure that people don't think we just make things up. Last year, the appropriation from the legislature was introduced on 9/11, one day later than today, so we're really right on pace.
Thank you. And prior to getting into, we've got one old business item, then we'll move into our regular agenda. School started again. We've got some students here this evening, so I'd like to invite any student here to please come up to the microphone, introduce yourself, and let us know the school that you attend. Don't be bashful. We see you sitting there looking at each other, so just kind of get in a line and come on up. We delight in putting you on the spot.
I'm Madison, and I'm from Diamond, and we're in U.S. government class.
Awesome.
Oh, welcome.
My name's Xavier. I'm new here at Anchorage, well, actually by a year. Actually, I came from Missouri for wrestling. I came here, and then I'm a senior, yeah, almost done.
Awesome.
Thank you. Step a little closer to the microphone. It's not going to shock you.
I'm Christian. I go to Diamond, doing this as a government project. So,
Wow, I got a lot of guys from my district here.
There you go.
Right on. Come on.
Hi, my name is Amanda Miles. I'm from Kodiak, and I'm part of the Dental Health Aid Therapist Training Program.
Welcome to Anchorage. Hi.
Hi, I'm Sabrina, and I'm also in the Dental Health Aid Therapist Program, but I'm from Juneau.
Welcome to Anchorage.
My name is Charles. I'm also a dental health aid therapy student, and I'm from Emonic.
Emonic?
Welcome. Hi.
Hi, I'm Daniela. I'm from Diamond, and I'm in U.S. government class.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Claudia, and I'm from Diamond as well in the U.S. government class.
Awesome.
Is there anybody left at Diamond this evening?
I'm also from Diamond, and my name's Jenny. So, yeah.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi, I'm Sebastian. I'm from Colombia, and my high school is West High School, and I'm here for my U.S. government class.
Fantastic.
Well, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Diamond and West. We now have before us item 11A, AR number 218, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly modifying and replacing an alcoholic beverages conditional use for beverage dispensary use and license number 4353 in the B2B District for Latin Connection Entertainment, LLC, doing business as Club Soroya.
Move to approve.
Thank you. Got a motion to approve and a motion to second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Dembowski.
Thank you, sir. Is the applicant here?
Yes.
Hi there, sir. Can you just
Hi.
state your name for us?
I'm sorry I didn't hear you well.
Your name?
I'm Hector Ortiz.
Okay, Mr. Ortiz, I had some questions regarding your application.
Sure.
Let me just get to the right page here. Okay, on page 6 of your application, there's two different spots where we're talking about security. And you had indicated that part of your security plan was reliance on the Anchorage Police Department. When you stated that awareness, management, and security and police presence will be available for safety of all patrons. Also, club security and police adequate coverage. My concern, Mr. Ortiz, is that your club is has too much reliance on the Anchorage Police Department.
Has too much what, ma'am?
Reliance on the Anchorage Police Department. I want to ensure that you have adequate security that you can independently manage without depending on the police.
Well, the reason why I even made that statement is because we get good service from the police department, and they always come around. And it's not that I rely on them, it's just that I'm glad they come. I have ample security, in there. We run 4 guys. Depending on the crowds that I expect and the events that I hold, we keep real good security. That's evidenced by the fact that we have very low reports, report system. And we're not in the system, let's put it that way. I'm never under the scope.
Well, I agree with you. Our police department is fantastic. But can you talk to me a little bit about what your security plan is?
Yeah, what we do is we have the club itself has the entrances. I put them on entrances. We have ID checks, and we do the frisk. And of course, I got one person checking ID, one person doing the frisk, and often just 2 people just kind of walking the floor. And I think I was misunderstood in saying that I rely on the police. The reason why I rely on them is because they've been good. It's been good.
Absolutely.
I have no problems with that. They come in, I welcome them to come around, take a walk around, and we got a pretty good working relationship. So.
And when you said you had 2 people at the door, one doing the ID check, one doing the frisk, and then you have 2 people inside walking the floor, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, at bar break time, do any of your security staff monitor the outside area?
Well, our outside area is actually, it's not that big, and we do have, the entrance, he's positioned into which he's halfway out the door and halfway in the building. As you walk into my establishment, you first see security, then you, if we have a cover charge or whatever, then you pay. But he stands outside the door, and he checks. He can visibly see anything happening on the outside.
Okay.
And we do have, limits as to how far we're going to send our security guys, after someone. But within our scope, we take care of what we take
I
care of.
appreciate that very much. And one last question. Is your club planning on partaking in the extended bar hours program?
I'm still considering that because, that's a good program and all that. It could be, for me, as far as I'm concerned, the people that come to my club it's like a destination location. I don't face the street. So I don't have, I don't worry too much about, an excess of people coming in. I would like to hold people in the club, to, kind of calm down, sober up. I have a system by which I get my people out of the club. The way I play the music and the tactics I use to have them all go out at different times, like my older folks get out first. Then I entertain the younger ones to go out last, so there won't be any mix of the older and the. It's good for my business because the older folks are always afraid of the young people, out in the streets. So what I try to do is combine. I have a method by which I, incrementally put them out, so they won't clash out there. So, but I have considered that, but I don't know if it's going to be productive for me to really have, more like babysit people for an hour and a half, with full staff and everything else like that. Although I welcome, any other approach to, holding them there and have a system by which I can just incrementally let them out, not,
If you noticed that there became a problem at your establishment at bar break time, would you reconsider and proactively try to engage the new program?
Absolutely. See, the thing is, mine is compliance. But at the same time, it's a way in which you make people feel safe. It's good for business to make people feel safe and also to cover yourself in case someone leaves out of there, to the point that, there's going to cause problems outside. There is a problem, everybody exiting at the same time. Now that they increase the taxi force and everything else like that, people are going to be, more likely to just get out there. But they don't linger. It's customarily our people just go home. Sure.
Mr. Ortiz, I really appreciate you coming down. I think, Mr. Chairman, he satisfied my concerns. I appreciate it very much.
Well, I thank you.
We have no one else in the queue. Thank you.
I thank you.
No one else in the queue, please vote. Motion carries unanimously. We now go to our 14 items for public testimony, beginning with 14A, AO number 96, an ordinance authorizing a ground space lease located on a portion of Track A2, Brindlewood subdivision between Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility and Selco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve. Second.
I see no one in the queue. Please vote. That motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item 14B, AO number 97, an ordinance authorizing a disposal of a non-exclusive electrical easement located on Track A2, Brindlewood subdivision between Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility and Matanuska Electric Association. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
No one in the queue. Please vote. Mr. Honeman? Motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item 14C, AO number 98, an ordinance authorizing a disposal of a non-exclusive electrical easement located on Track A1, Warrensoff Tract subdivision between Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility and Chugach Electric Association, Incorporated. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Second.
No one in the queue. Please vote. something, we've lost our screen. Do we need tech to, we've lost our power. Madam Clerk, did you pay the bill? I thought you were going to do that. Do we? And I just promised that our timer was working correctly tonight.
So it looks like the meeting manager system is working. It looks like we have an electrical problem.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to proceed with your meeting, you can. It looks like your machine and mine are working. It's just not working on the board.
Okay.
Could you have the clerk read the last couple of votes so the public knows what the votes were if the screens went dead before?
We'll do that because actually what we are voting on now, this is the only item we lost the screen on. It's the one we just voted, and that was on 14C, ordinance number 98, an ordinance authorizing a disposal of non-exclusive electrical easement located on track A1, Warrens-Off Tract subdivision between Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility and Chugiak Electric Association, and that was a unanimous vote approving.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're going to do a short at ease to allow technicians under the counter. I'll call the meeting back to order as soon as we have connectivity. Call the meeting back to order. We now have before us item 14D, AO number 93, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly submitting to the qualified voters of the municipality of Anchorage at the regular municipal election of April 1, 2014, a ballot proposition to amend the Anchorage Municipal Charter by changing all gender-specific terminology to gender-neutral term as appropriate and indicated by the context. This item is before us for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Mary Barr, and I would urge you to vote no on this one. Throughout history, the term man has been a stand-in for a human person of either gender, where the specific sex of an individual is not critical. Gender neutral nonsense came out of the 60s feminist movement, and I personally find it very offensive and contrived, and I'm asking you to vote no on this one. It's a waste of money. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Heck, I can't resist this. My name is Daryl. I think that you guys should spell it W-O-M-Y-N. I think that's a great idea. Or maybe I don't. Leave it the way it is. This is a common sense thing. It's been like that for a majority of life. If you're offended by something like that, you really have some problems, honestly. This is kind of preposterous to me. Thank you. I look forward to speaking again soon.
Thank you.
Richard Braun. What? Really?
I need you to give us your name.
Richard Braun.
Okay. Thank you.
Why don't you just implement this as you rewrite each of your different charter provisions, change it then, save a lot of time, a lot of fuss, a lot of messing around. I agree with Daryl. It's a waste of time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone at all? Seeing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. Motion carries 10-1 opposed. We now have before us item 14E, AR number 236, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly approving an alcoholic beverage conditional use for a package store use and license number 4948 in the I-1 district for Walmart Stores Incorporated doing business as Walmart Supercenter number 4359 at 7405 DeBar Road within Creekside Subdivision, Tract B, generally located north of DeBar Road and west of Creekside Drive in Anchorage. This item is before the body for action. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Good evening.
Good evening. I just made it.
You look winded, Mr. McGrath.
Thank you, Tom.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Tom McGrath. Members of the Assembly, Mr. Mayor, I know Walmart's a big company, and God, would they ever do anything wrong? You're damn right they would. When I testified, or when the liquor license for the Midtown store came before you, I testified that they sell a lot of Listerine, a huge amount of Listerine, and other mouthwash products which have a large alcoholic content. I thought, okay, they've heard my concern. They'll decrease the amount because, like at Fred Meyer's, there's about 2 bottles of this big Listerine. You can see in the pictures here, Walmart has a lot of Listerine. And also, in Spenard, we've asked the various liquor stores to cut down the amount of Monarch vodka that they sell. Monarch is the really cheap rot gut vodka that the street inebriates really like to have. And if you pick up the trash in Spenard like I do, you'll open up the bag, and here's a Walmart receipt. You know, we blame In-N-Out Liquor, we blame some of the other liquor stores. Lots of times it's a Walmart receipt. And if you look at the picture there, there is about a 6-foot section in their store that's devoted to Walmart, or I mean to whatever the vodka, Monarch vodka. If you go into any other liquor store, or if you go to liquor stores that have conditions on them in Spenard, they don't carry Monarch because they know it's offensive to the people and it causes problems because that's what the street inebriates buy. And we've asked Walmart, quit selling the rot gut Monarch vodka, and of course they don't. Also then I look at your conditional use permit that you're going to approve tonight, and what I would really like to do is see you fashion it after the one that you've come up with an example for the In-N-Out Liquor store in Spenard, putting the kinds of restrictions on Walmart as you do and as we do in Spenard on the other liquor stores, because they're contributing to the street inebriate problem just as much or maybe more than the small liquor stores. Walmart does volume. You know, In-N-Out Liquor probably has 6 or 8% of the number of buyers, shoppers in a day. So let's hold Walmart to the same requirements that we hold the other liquor licenses, and ask them, do you really need to be selling that much mouthwash to the street inebriates of Anchorage? Thank you.
We have a question. Ms. Dembowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McGrath, can you give the clerk that? I want to see what you're referencing as far as modeling it after.
Actually, it's a copy that Mr. Steele and Mr. Hall just gave me the other day.
Sure. I just, for some point of reference, I'd like to know exactly what type, maybe you could just articulate it a little bit while she's getting copies, but could you tell me specifically what type of restrictions you think should be put in place?
I think that the really inexpensive alcohol containers like Monarch vodka in a high-density area where the street inebriates should not be sold. Also, like at 36th Avenue Liquor and some of the other liquor stores in Spenard, we've asked them not to sell shooters. We've asked them not to sell the 40-ounce beers. It's the beverages of choice of the street inebriates. Sell all the fine wine you want to, but it's the really inexpensive liquor that is in the brown bags throughout our neighborhoods, and guys like me pick them up, and other people. Renee at Blaine's Photo calls on a regular basis and has a huge problem. You know, there's other businesses in Spenard that just we end up picking up this stuff, and I don't think that one business should make a lot of money on the backs of another business.
And it's appropriate to say then that most of the businesses you mentioned voluntarily restrict the sales. Is that correct, or has it been mandated by this body?
Actually, in the downtown area, a lot of it's been mandated. In Spenard, it hasn't been mandated by this body. Well, except like 36th Avenue Liquor, the Spenard Community Council put restrictions on the license, and then that became part of their conditional use permit that was approved by this body. So in a lot of cases, it is approved by this body as well as the Community Council.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Trombley.
You're requesting us to mandate to Walmart to limit the amount of mouthwash that they sell?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Everybody up here and everybody in this town agrees that there's an alcohol problem, that there's it's an epidemic. We acknowledge that. How do we shift? My concern is shifting that burden to the businesses. You know, we live in an age where you can't profile. You go to the airport, you can't say, well, you fit a certain bill, so I'm going to search you more than this other person. What is the liability to the business that says, well, you look like X, I'm not going to sell you that? How do we justify limiting Walmart to selling to a certain individual in today's day and age when you can't profile and the liability to the business? That's my concern.
But you don't have to make it easy on people. It's like in Spenard, we used to have 50 massage parlors with flashing signs saying sex is here. And the Spenard Community Council, the Spenard Patrol, made it difficult for them. All of them shut down. They didn't just go someplace else. Lots of them shut down and never came back. If you make it a little bit difficult on the people that are buying alcohol to abuse that alcohol, maybe some of them will actually just clean up their act and not drink so much. But when you go into Walmart, you just make it easy for them to pick up their big bottle of Listerine or the really cheap Monarch vodka, and you actually make it easy for the street inebriate to stay a street inebriate. Where if we made it just a little more difficult, some of them would quit drinking. That's my belief. It's like trash in Spenard. If you tell a person when you catch them not to throw the trash on the sidewalk, sometimes next time they won't do it. And here we have a major corporation in our midst contributing to our problems. And we've held 36th Avenue Liquor, we've held In-N-Out Liquor, we've held Brown Jug Liquor to a higher standard. They meet that standard, and as a result, we don't have near as many problems. When I pick up trash in Spenard, I don't see an In-N-Out, a Brown Jug bag. I see the Walmart bag. I see the Walmart receipts. So, why let them just perpetuate the problem? Maybe we could actually fix something.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Steele?
Thank you, Mr. Graff, for coming and bringing these items up to us. What do you think about an alcohol tax?
As a conservative, I hate the idea of another tax, but I also know, I just saw the ICER study, and, it was two studies. The ICER study said that alcohol and drugs can cost the state of Alaska $1.2 billion a year. The FBI study said that alcohol alone costs the state of Alaska $730 million per year. Yet we only tax alcohol to the extent of $38 million a year. So from $38 million to $730 million, the taxpayers are covering that bill. And so years ago, myself, Alan Teshy, Alan Teshy?
Alan Teshy.
Yeah, Alan Teshy, Ruth Moulton, a couple others. We got together and we talked about a drink tax. I don't know if any of you remember it. And, I think that'd be a good start, maybe a quarter a drink. A lot of years have gone by. But we already have a high alcohol tax, but we're not even close to what the cost is. So, no, I don't like taxes. In this case, the cost causer should be the cost payer. And I've heard a number of assemblymen say that over the years, so I think I'm safe saying it.
Mr. Training.
Mr. McGrath, when we were all working on that, we found the city can't institute an alcohol tax. It's a state issue. They're the only ones that have the ability, because believe me, if we thought we could, Tesh and I would have done that years ago. You would have seen it in operation right now, but we don't have, by a factor of state law, we don't have the ability to institute an alcohol tax. I wish we did.
Okay, well, maybe we can talk to our different representatives.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. McGrath. Anyone else to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to correct a couple of things that were discussed. We actually can impose an alcohol tax. However, it requires a 60% voter-approved majority. It's under the same category as a sales tax. And I think Mr. McGrath made a good point when he discussed the utilization of state dollars. Roughly half of the state taxes on alcohol are diverted for general fund programs and not utilized for alcohol treatment services, which I think would be a good first step, and as you may recall, has consistently been part of our legislative agenda for the past several years. I think, Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to entertain a motion to postpone this one for a couple of weeks so we can at least invite the representatives from Walmart to discuss this at greater length.
Second.
Any objection to, Mr. Trini, I've got you and Mr. Honeman both in the queue.
I'd like this to be sent to Public Safety Committee meeting on the 18th for the Public Safety Committee to take a look at this and see what can be done relative to Walmart's sale of alcohol.
I can refer that. I've still got Mr. Flynn's motion on the floor. Anyone want to speak to Mr. Flynn's motion to postpone till our next meeting? Seeing, hearing no objection, or please vote on that motion. Let's do it that way. That motion carries 10 approving, 1 no.
Chairman?
Mr. Trainee.
Question for you. Can I get a ruling from Department of Law, Mr. Mayor, from Dennis Wheeler, on the issue of the assembly and alcohol tax? Because I've been told by numerous city attorneys in the same position he's in now that we cannot have a sales tax on alcohol here. And if it takes 60%, Pat, then fine. But let's find out in definitive form whether we can or not, because I've been told by numerous city attorneys from Dennis Wheeler on down that we can't.
We can do that, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Horniman, I had you in the queue.
Well, I'd be more than happy to have the discussion with the makers of, or the applicant and their counsel. I have actually had conversations at the Northeast Community Council. As you know, that's a fairly active and very vocal community council. They did not necessarily take a stance to support, but they didn't object either. And they're typically a community that has been very vocal about alcohol and alcohol issues in their community. I will laud Mr. McGrath and his efforts and comments about Listerine use. And I remember sometime back, Sergeant Denny Allen had gone around to several merchants, and they voluntarily pulled the large quantity bottles and not selling them, particularly for theft. Actually, there's been a lot of shoplifting as well. So there are some concerns, and certainly something we can address. But I will say that they've been fairly responsible as a merchant, a business. They've approached proactively, where some businesses come in after the fact or on the deadline squeaking in. So they've been very participative in the community, and they seem to be doing fairly good planning, implementing their both Sam's Club recently and now the Walmart. So,
thank you, Mr. Starr.
Well, I guess I understand the concern about that. I'm not positive that limiting Walmart to sales or no sales is the answer. I would hope that the member of those that represent the Walmart would look at some of the things that we were successful in the Eagle River Walmart. I keep talking about that one, but we limited their store hours. We limited their advertising. We wouldn't allow the store to connect to the interior part of the store. They had a separate exit and entrance. And believe it or not, I see their Walmart store manager comes to all the community council meetings. They're very happy to talk to us about it. We've had an education summit with the sort of the inebriate presence that potentially could be, as well as they've decided to close their liquor stores early on events that are nearby Lions Park. And it's a pretty engaging group in that liquor store group. I think their attitude, as I've found with the Walmart group, is that they want to compete with the other vendors in the neighborhood. The other vendors in the neighborhood are not liquor stores. They're Fred Meyer's and Sam's Club and some of those. And so I think the dialogue, I'm hoping, isn't so much specific to sales or no sales, but how do they sell it? And that would be my approach on that, as well as a limitation that would be restricted to perhaps 1 year of performance. And then the motivation is to bring it back to us for that. So that's kind of why I voted no. I'd like the dialogue to continue into appropriate sales as opposed to sales or no sales. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. This item has been postponed to the meeting of October the 8th, and it will be referred to the Public Safety Committee for the meeting of September the 18th.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, September 24th. We have now before us item 14F, AO number 88, an ordinance amending the zoning map and approving the rezoning of approximately 11.5 acres from R2ASL district and PLI district to R2ASL district for Tract C, Government Lot 6, Alaska State Land, Survey number 2006-3, and Tract B1, Recreation Center subdivision within the northwest 1/4 of Section 36, T15N, R2S, SM, Anchorage, generally located north of Muldoon Street and west of Nob Hill Drive in Eagle River. This item is before the body for action. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. That item is past 10 with one member absent. We now have before us item 14G, AO number 90, an ordinance amending the zoning map and approving the rezoning from R5 district to and B3 SL district with special limitations to 1.2 district from Village South subdivision, Track 1, and Eklutna Acre subdivisions, lots 1 through 4, containing approximately 9.98 acres, generally located south of the Glen Highway and north of Denina Elders Road in Eklutna. This item is before the body for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Cole Mayhew. I'm here on behalf of the petitioner, Harry Johnson. It's a new experience for me to be this far north. I'm from down in the southwest where it's full of desert and we have more sagebrush than you have salmon. I've never been further north than Fargo, North Dakota, and never further west than the California coast. And, since I've been here Saturday night, I've seen a bear, I've walked on a glacier, I've been to a Costco too, and it's kind of a funny sentiment, but it's a unique balance that's been struck, and I'm actually very impressed by it, that you're able to have such dynamic and amazing natural resources, and you're able to protect them in such a way while providing the creature comforts for the citizens, and that balance is a difficult thing to achieve, and it's a testament to people like you and your colleagues in the legislature that it's been done so well here. So for what it's worth, from an outsider, I've been very impressed with my visit here. But that's not why I'm here tonight. I'm only going to take a few minutes. I know this is a relatively minor point for you all to consider. I had sent a letter to the Assembly about a month back, and I'm not sure how many were able to read that. It was understandably long, and I do have sympathy for anyone who did take the time to read all the points in that. And I only received a few responses back. One of the responses was particularly offended by my tone in the letter, and the first point I wanted to address is that I did want for you, the Assembly members, to understand my intention, and my intention was only to represent Mr. Johnson, the property owner, and his interests as effectively and aggressively as I could. On my flight up here, I was able to read the biographies on each of you, and you all seem like very accomplished people, very educated people, and I certainly wouldn't ever object to having a friendly working relationship or acquaintance with any of you. But if someone is to be offended or object to my zeal in representing Mr. Johnson, then it's not likely that we're going to get along very well. But I just can't abandon him and adopt a silence because somebody accuses me of being ungracious. But to the main point of the letter itself, it involves the ordinance that's before you today on this zone change. And the problem with this ordinance is that it does contain a section in it, the section 2, that is in there erroneously, and it shouldn't have been there. To give you just a tad of history, prior to the June 5th commission meeting in which this was brought before the
Sir, I want to give you a heads up. Your time is up.
My time's already up.
Your time is up.
Well, I will say quickly, what I would request is that the section 2 is an item that was unanimously rejected by your planning commission. It was brought up and it was evaluated by them. They looked at the pictures and they rejected to include it in there. So I would ask that before a vote that one of you move to amend this to remove the section 2 before passage.
I have some questions for you, Mr. Trombley.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, my question would be for Mr. Weaver. So,
Mr. Weaver? You can go ahead and be seated. Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Mr. Weaver, for coming up. I do see that the department recommendation you are requesting, or you're recommending, I should say, that there be that 30-foot screen, which is on page 405 of our packets, if anyone's interested in looking at that, and that the commission didn't necessarily support that. How did that make it into the ordinance?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Trombley, when the ordinance was introduced, I tried to suggest that we postpone it so we could correct the ordinance. The ordinance was prepared in error. Right. You have, all the record from the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did not put this provision in there. What we should have done was presented you an ordinance that did not have that requirement in there, but in the Assembly Memorandum explain why we believe it's appropriate. And basically that's in the packet. The comprehensive plan for Chugach Eagle River called for this screening. There's presently already a screening on the property on the B3 portion that's already in existence. The new code that goes into effect next year requires a highway screening on the periphery all the way to the northern boundary of our community.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weaver.
Mr. Horniman.
Well, I was part of it. Just wanted to make sure the gentleman had a good chance to summarize his position that was testifying momentarily, but just wanted to make sure we clarified and Mr. Weaver did an adequate job explaining. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Second.
Mr. Starr.
Well, I'm happy to leave Section 2 in, and I think there's a lot of reasons for it. First off, there's a precedent for it. We did it to Tahanu Commons, for example. And I think it's an appropriate action here. We're also taking what's currently zoned as a restrictive residential area, and we're turning it into industrial land. So if any of you went to the fair, you drove by the new power plant that's going in out there, and it's a massive facility. And so now what's happening is that the folks around it, as I see it, the surrounding properties are saying, wow, this is a pretty good deal. Now we've got I property abutting it. Let's get some I property as well. So the industrial property, meaning the I, and that's quite a bit higher value. So this property will be spun and the use will be there. But we don't want to have our roadways unsightly. We don't have billboards in this state. And I appreciate the visit up here from Utah and some of those other boroughs that have all of that stuff. Where the heck is Wall Drug? You can drive through North Dakota and see that billboard for 500 miles. So I'm not going to take out Section 2. I urge approval of this, and I guess there's a little bit of chastising here too, is that this is the property that needs to be cleaned up. You drive out there and there's an old motel, 2 old signs on the property. We've had just a tremendous amount of junk cars that have been put on that property. So I'm quite pleased actually that we're turning it over to I-2. It'll be blended in with the new power plant, and the property will be reused into an appropriate section. And I think that's what our constituent body wants. Mr. Weaver correctly quoted the comprehensive plan and the land use directives from our community, which we have a separate land use plan, a separate land use code. I wouldn't say we're tremendously thrilled about the power plant out there. It was going to be a coal-burning facility, and I don't know how the natural gas is actually going to be allocated out there. But I hope they're good neighbors. I hope they provide some fire protection service. We're going to tax our Chugiak Volunteer Fire Department pretty fast. So the I-2 with the petitioner, your tax bill will probably go up as well. So I guess that's maybe a downside for them, but paying their fair share. So strong words, I know, but I urge approval, and as it stands with the Section 2, I think that's a good comment to have for our district.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank Mr. Mayhew for flying to Anchorage and enjoying himself while he was here, but flying here on behalf of his client. And, you know, I did, believe it or not, read the 9 pages, and thank you for your explanation. And the administration did inadvertently omit something, but they fixed it. You know, and I respect and appreciate your concerns. But on the other hand, I also believe in doing what's right for our community as a whole. And I really I have to agree with Mr. Wheeler and the recommendation that we have this section in here. And so, you know, based on what I just said, I'm going to have to approve this document as presented. But again, thank you for your 9-page letter and for visiting our beautiful city. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Dembowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also concur with Mr. Starr's statements. Just for clarity, the only constituent comment that I received on this was opposed to the rezoning at all. But I think it's a reasonable proposal, and I think with the vegetation buffer, it's a good little mix. It'll help mitigate a little bit of the impact. So I urge approval.
Ms. Johnston.
Well, I'm going to defer to our Eagle River Assembly people and vote with them. But I have to say, as far as to the staff, I think there would have been a better way of going about this ordinance. I wish you had actually given it to us the same way that Planning and Zoning had given it or passed it out. And then if the Assembly members from Eagle River wanted to amend it, which I think is quite appropriate, I think that was the better route. But to have it come to us with staff amending it, I do think that that is poor form. Thank you.
Mr. Flynn.
I need to gently remind my colleagues that staff asked us not to introduce this ordinance so they could present it in the form that Planning and Zoning passed it. We chose to ignore that advice and introduced it. I didn't vote for that.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. No one else in the queue, please vote.
May I make a comment real quick, please?
If you do it very quickly, we've closed public testimony on this item.
My attorney, or Mr. Mayhew, was under the impression he had more time than he did. He really didn't have an opportunity to talk about the salient issues on this particular thing.
Sir, we appreciate that, but the testimony is closed on this. I'm sorry. Please vote. That motion passes 10 with 1 no. We now have before us item 14H, AO number 95, an ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code, Chapter 23.10, 2011 Anchorage Administrative Code, Section 104, permit requirements to provide the option to exempt all residential and commercial construction from plan review by municipal building officials for code compliance and building safety when a registered design professional designated by the permit applicant certifies the plans were reviewed and comply with applicable codes. This item is before us for public testimony. I do want to make you aware this item is going to be postponed, and we will continue public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. It's going to be postponed to what date?
I will be postponing it.
Mr. Trombley will address that.
Mr. Trombley?
Meeting of
Yeah,
October.
We've got public testimony.
I know, I just want to get that
Meeting of
out
October
first so they
8th.
know.
Meeting of October 8th.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Scott Boney. I'm a registered architect with RIM Architects. I've been practicing in architecture here in Anchorage for better than 30 years. And I am quite opposed to AO 2013-95 and its predecessor for that fact. Though I'm very versed in the codes, I do not consider myself an expert. The code is not a very black and white document. It's got a lot of things that need some interpretation, and it is a very, very complicated document. I very much welcome the peer review that building safety offers each time we submit for a set of plans. MOA plan reviewers are very well trained, they're professional, and they have vast experience. Most of them are certified plan reviewers. Though I occasionally disagree with their comments, I take those with great respect and work with them to resolve those, and quite often learn something in the process. This ordinance is not endorsed by the Structural Engineers Association of Alaska. I would seriously doubt if the American Institute of Architects Alaska chapter would endorse it. Even if it was repaired by including mechanical, electrical, plumbing, vertical transportation, and the deferred fire items that are missing in it, I'm still not in favor of this ordinance. It does not offer that peer review that is so very important. It is not an insurable event. There's an article in there on 1.04.7.1, Article D3B3 III that requires $250,000 of insurance. This would not be an insurable event, as the professional is making a statement that's beyond the standard of care for his profession. Matter of fact, it may be even questionable if it's legal for him to make such a statement to his license. Offering this to a three-family residence was kind of bad enough, but this amendment basically affects hundreds and possibly thousands of people in a single building. It really strips an awful lot of power from building safety. The peer review that building safety plan officials offer is very good. More problems will be found up front instead of in the field, in the built work. Once it's in the built work, it's kind of too late at that point. Construction is slowed down and possibly even stop. This slow down and stop in the field starts to affect the inspectors that are scheduled for the next inspection. So people that are going through the process are being impacted by this whole inspection process. This also does not have any means of an audit in here. Matter of fact, it's specifically written in such a way that an audit cannot be provided. This is not good. Very quickly, let me wind up. You're here to protect the citizens of Anchorage, and this places the citizens in Anchorage in jeopardy. This benefits only a few builders and not the citizenship as a whole. I please ask you to vote no.
I have some questions for you, Ms. Johnston.
Yes, have you designed any buildings outside of our building permit district?
I have designed buildings all over the state of Alaska, from the North Slope down to Ketchikan.
Eagle River, Girdwood?
Yes, absolutely, both of them.
And in those situations, what kind of peer review have you had?
Quite often when you're out in the outside the jurisdiction here, you are being reviewed by the state fire marshal on public property or on public buildings of commercial size, and they look for fire life safety items specifically.
And you find, have you done buildings in both Eagle River and Girdwood? Has the state fire marshal been involved in that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Trombley.
I appreciate your testimony. You mentioned peer review. Have you read the ordinance?
Yes, I am familiar with it.
Does it provide peer review?
It provides peer review by another licensed
right,
professional.
But it does provide peer review, correct?
Yes, it does in that
fashion. So your issue is not whether it's peer review, but your issue is the fact that it's not peer reviewed by the municipality, even though Chugiak, Eagle River, Girdwood, Bear Valley, parts of Stuckey Heights already aren't peer reviewed by the municipality. They're already peer reviewed by a third party that's outside of that. So your concern is that peer review outside in those areas that aren't peer reviewed by the municipality, you're saying those are less safe to live in, less safe to be in than those within the building safety area? Are you saying that as a professional that those people living in those areas should be concerned where they live? Of their structure collapsing on them and killing them?
I would always welcome another reviewer to look at my work. I'm not going to pretend
Right, but
I'm
that's not always
perfect.
the case. You've built outside the area and they haven't done that.
And,
did you build a bad product?
They live at risk, but that is a risk of up to 3 families and not commercial buildings that hold hundreds and possibly thousands
Was
of
the
people.
Captain Cook reviewed by the municipality when it was built? I can answer the question, no, it wasn't. Has it collapsed yet? I can answer that one too, no, it hasn't. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Honeman?
Well, while I appreciate the energy with Mr. Trombley, the maker of the ordinance, I am concerned, and I would welcome, I think, the information that from the Society of Structural Engineers of Alaska, and there was 2 organizations you mentioned. Could you repeat which ones?
The first one I mentioned was the Structural Engineers Association of Alaska. I don't have a written document from them. And the second one I mentioned was the American Institute of Architects Alaska chapter.
Okay. And, I'm, well, anyway, I appreciate you coming up. Were you able to get your points in there? I know you at the end had to summarize.
Yes, I got all my talking points in.
Okay, very good. I too am concerned about particularly the commercial aspect of it. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other questions.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify?
Good evening. My name is Craig Fredine. I am a licensed mechanical engineer in the state of Alaska. I echo Mr. Boney's comments. I too am against this ordinance. As an engineer, I make mistakes. Don't think that for a second that we have no mistakes. We don't intend them to be there, but we make mistakes. And it is always appreciated to have a third-party review. And I think the importance with this ordinance, the municipality of Anchorage provides an independent third-party review. Not a $50 drinking buddy review is going to stamp your drawings. There are plan stampers in this state. There's plan stampers outside the state. They'll stamp a Captain Cook for $2,000 and have the drawings to you tomorrow. And if you don't believe me, I can get you in touch with NCAAS, who has a laundry list of people across the country who do that. Now, we pay taxes in Anchorage for public safety. We pay for fire. We pay for police. This is public safety. Now, you can also go ahead and fire all the fire departments and make them volunteer fire departments. You can let the state troopers take over Anchorage as well. This is public safety. And if you don't believe me, remember the 4.0 earthquake we had today. Had that been a 9.0, not if, when, not the 9.6, but a 9.0, you think about all those kids who are in school today. And then ask yourself, how much money is it worth to have the municipality of Anchorage actually check someone's seismic calculations? And is that important? Because this is about public safety. The second thing is there was a work session done scheduled for this, and it got canceled. I hope that there is a work session because it's impossible to teach you, to bring out all of these issues of why this ordinance has not only failed, but negligently failed towards public safety in 2 minutes. So please have a work session. Let us talk to you about these issues. The way it's currently written, a regulation cannot be done by the state. I used to be on the licensing board. Any structural engineer who signs this is going to lose his license. So, and regarding the Captain Cook, my 1950s pickup truck didn't have seat belts when it was built. As humans, we learn to evolve, and we learn from our mistakes, and I hope this ordinance isn't one of those mistakes. Thank you.
Ms. Dembowski?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ferdine,
yes.
Can you comment on Mr. Trombley's his comments regarding Eagle River, Girdwood, some of these areas that are already out of the municipality's purview? What's the difference?
Well, I would say I'd go back to the taxes. We have full-time fire departments. We have ambulances. We pay for police. Having that independent reviewer paid for by the municipality of Anchorage is important.
Sir,
So I also design facilities around the state of Alaska as well, as Mr. Boney does. And I understand that we don't have to do it out there, so why do we have to do it in here? And I will tell you, Kodiak has this, Valdez has this, Fairbanks has this. So you're telling me you guys want to hold to a lower level of building control and permit review as Kodiak and Valdez in the city of Anchorage? So there is a difference.
Sir, I don't think I don't think you were clear in your answer. I'm not asking about the fire department. What I'm saying is if we have building codes, or there's a certain way that we allow buildings to be built in Eagle River, where I'm from. I don't believe our buildings are any safer out in Eagle River, so convince me that this ordinance is going to negatively impact the citizens of Anchorage.
I grew up in Eagle River. What you might know is all the municipality of Anchorage facilities, including schools, are reviewed by the municipality, and they're inspected by the municipality. Now, there is a state plumbing inspector who goes around. Believe me, I know the state plumbing inspector goes around. But the state of Alaska is also short on money as well. I'm sure if you talk to the state and ask them if they could go out and review every building, they would. There's a lot of communities that don't even get state inspectors out there. And to me, that is a safety issue. Now, as an engineer, I do my best. We do internal QCs the best, but we do make mistakes. And I don't think this ordinance is worth the money to put those mistakes in Anchorage. And by the way, reminder, the permit department is self-funded, not taxpayer funded.
And my last comment, and it is kind of, I generally don't do this when people testify, but I have to tell you, your comment when you said somebody's going to get a $50 beer drinking buddy to stamp their plans, I personally find that offensive. And when I hear people make comments like that, it kind of, to me, when I hear you testify, it diminishes your credibility. So I don't generally, speak against people when they say comments because you have a freedom to say whatever you want, but I'm trying to help you tailor your argument so it's a little more effective.
I appreciate that. As a professional engineer, I'm very offended by plan stampers. And if I wish for the work session, we can have the state inspector, John Savage, who goes around and keeps track on the engineers. He can come and also give you examples of people who do stamp plans for money and not reviews. So it is an exception. I agree the $50 might have been grossly exaggerated, but do not be fooled. There are plan stampers in the state of Alaska, and it might not be $50, but it'll be $2,000 for a several $million-dollar facility.
I appreciate your comments, and I tend to concur with your statements about the work session. I'm not a builder, I'm not an engineer, so when we're talking about a substantive change, it's something that I'd like to explore. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Trombley?
No.
There's no one else in the queue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body. We will continue public testimony.
Move to postpone to October 8th.
Any objection?
Just a clarification.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Trombley, are you anticipating a work session on this?
We are.
Thank you.
When I get the S version, yes, I will have a work session.
Okay. This item will be carried over until the meeting of October 8th. No objection. Yes. We now have before us item 14I, AR number 225, a resolution municipality of Anchorage appropriating $484,355 from the State of Alaska Department of Transportation and Public Facilities to the Direct Fed Pass-Through Grants Fund 231 for a transfer of responsibility agreement for the Regional Household Travel Survey Project in the Community Development Department, Planning Division, Transportation Planning Section. This item is before the body for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second, and I have no one in the queue. Please vote. That motion carries unanimously. We have before us for public testimony 14J AR number 226, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $190,890 from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to the Federal Grants Fund 241 and $192,540 from the Alaska Housing Finance Corporation to the State Direct Federal Pass-Through Grants Fund 231 to provide Alaska Homeless Management Information Project Services through the Department of Health and Human Services. This item is before the body for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. That motion carries unanimously. The next item before us is 14K, and as I've announced earlier in the meeting, anyone that's here to testify on that, I'm asking that you sign up. Over here to my left, there's a sign-up sheet. We will go down the sheet. So we have before us item 14K AR number 230S, the resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly supporting continued fluoride use by the Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility and encouraging broader community engagement and discussion through the ballot initiative process. This item is before us. Madam Clerk, will you read the first three names?
Daryl Lanson, Terry Tauschek, Joseph McLaughlin.
What I ask is please come up and queue the three that are going to speak, and then we will call the next three people.
Hello.
Good evening.
How are you tonight?
Good.
My name is Daryl. Now, I know everybody here kind of knows me a bit, and you're expecting me to speak about fluoride, but I'm actually not going to speak about fluoride. I am going to speak about AR 230S. Not about fluoride and how poorly written this resolution is and what an insult it is to the public process. Last Tuesday, I was at a meeting. The meeting was a public or citizens task force, and this body sees fit to have a citizen task force regarding the public testimony process, but at this point has not seen fit to have a citizens task force looking into a serious public health issue. Okay, my demand at this point is to table this resolution and postpone it indefinitely, and for you to move for a citizens task force. Okay, now I have a few questions. On line 24 of this resolution, now therefore be it resolved that the Anchorage Assembly has considered available information. On what basis have you made your decision to continue to fluoridate the public water supply? You have information. Please provide the original documents used to make this decision. Was this decision made by a committee for the body, or was this decision made by the body itself? Who was present at this meeting? When was this meeting publicly announced? Because I'm sure you're aware of the Open Meetings Act, and this issue has already had violations of that. On November 14th of 2012, there was a Public Safety Committee meeting regarding fluoridation. There is no evidence whatsoever of that meeting on the Anchorage Municipality website. That meeting was an email invite only. That violates the Open Meeting Act. These meetings are supposed to be announced publicly and timely. You failed to do that. That meeting never happened. There's no evidence of it on the site. It never happened. Okay, now there's more questions here. You had other information that was reviewed. When does the public get to see this information? Where did this information come from? What was the review process for this information and the criteria for this information? Due diligence. These are legitimate questions that need to be answered. What was the subject matter experts? Who are these subject matter experts? It's in the resolution. Mind you, it's a one-page resolution, the only one tonight that is one page. Who are these subject matter experts? I would like to know what was discussed. When was the meeting with the subject matter experts? When was it announced? Who was present? Which assembly members, this resolution means that you people, as a group, as a body, have done some research apparently and made a decision that I should go petition, and if I'm successful in my petition, you will take it into consideration as an advisory. Well, I'm pretty sure that you're familiar that the petition and initiative process doesn't really work that way, does it? There is a flaw in your underlined portion here. There's no such thing as an advisory petition. If I were to petition, which I don't petition for my rights, it would be a definitive initiative, and that's also in the ordinance and the charter, so you may want to look into that a little bit more.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one thing that's not related, and this has to do with the open meetings process, and I've been at this body before where public testimony went to a certain length, and you did not finish with the public comments at the end of the meeting, and I want to make sure that we're not going to have that happen tonight, that this meeting will be ended with the audience participation as it is supposed to.
Thank you.
And that's going to happen, correct? We will have audience participation at the end?
We have audience participation at the end of every meeting. Standard procedure.
Where you didn't. And matter of fact, that guy Eugene that you all know brought that up. So I'm just making sure that we do that. And
the only time we don't have is when the time runs out. Thank you.
Got the light to work. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Yes.
We need to calm the meeting down, sir, and it's not appropriate the dialogue back and forth, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Traney.
Mr. Terry Tauschek, Mr. Joseph Laughlin, or Nikki Bennett.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Terry Tauschek. I am a 40-year resident of Anchorage. I am a dentist here and have practiced both in the public health service sectors and private practice. And I have been aware of the fluoride issue since I was in dental school, and I hate to tell you how long ago that was. It was 1968. Tonight I come to you as a practicing dentist and as a member of the AWU Board of Directors, and wish to support your motion to continue the use of fluoride. It's important to note, I think, just for historical record, that we have been fluoridating water in Anchorage since 1953 successfully. We are currently at AWU using a low level of fluoride enhancement that's now 0.7 parts per million. That's about half of what it used to be. And the reason for that is a directive from CDC that recognizes the influence of fluoride intake in people's diets from other places than drinking water. Beauty of fluoride is in the public water system is that it's passive. Everybody gets it. You don't have to do anything direct. It does not discriminate based on economic resources. Anybody who drinks the public water system can benefit by it. In my opinion, after 40 years of clinical practice, is that public fluoride in the water system is more effective than topically applied fluoride on teeth, and it imparts a lifetime resistance to dental decay. In Anchorage, AWU currently pays about $80,000 a year to provide the supplies and the fluoride infusion, and that includes labor costs and depreciation. The AWU currently serves about 240,000 people. And that works out to a cost factor of about 33 cents per person per year, slightly less than 3 cents a month. According to a very conservative figure from the American Dental Association, the return on that investment is about 38 to 1. Which means that for every dollar AWU spends, the city of Anchorage benefits in not having to buy something greater than $3 million worth of dental treatment. I found that number outstanding. I am glad to be able to support the use of fluoride, and I thank you for your support and encourage you to pass this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I have some questions for you, Mr. Traney.
Sir, just a question for you. Relative to children that don't have the benefits of fluoride in the water, do you see a higher evidence of cavities in their teeth versus those kids that we've got here in Anchorage that grew up on fluoride in their water system?
I'm not sure I understand your question totally.
Just putting kids in the bush that don't have fluoride, do we see a higher incident of cavities in their teeth versus those in Anchorage?
That is absolutely true. The rate is much higher in rural Alaska, and the rate is higher in lower income families who don't have the financial resources to support regular dental care.
Have you heard of any health concerns with the use of fluoride? We've heard from some people that are opposed to it that it's causing all sorts of problems in their bodies, diminishing mental capabilities. I think maybe they're talking about us, but have you seen any evidence of that happening?
I've seen no evidence of that, and I've been watching the issue for more than 40 years now.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Mr. Starr.
Conflict of interest. I've been paying this man 15 years. He's my children's dental person. So. But I don't pay him for cavities. So for what that's worth.
I suppose I should rebut. You've been paying me a lot less than you would have.
Perhaps. Dr. Kaushik, thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Ms. Dembowski.
Actually, Mr. Chair, Mr. Trini asked all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. We next have Joseph McLaughlin.
Thank you very much. My name is Joe McLaughlin, and I'm a physician and the state epidemiologist, and I work for the Alaska Division of Public Health. I'm here today to express the division's support for continued water fluoridation in the municipality of Anchorage public water system. Fluoride is a mineral that's been proven to prevent and even reverse tooth decay by remineralizing tooth surfaces. Water fluoridation reduces dental decay by more than 25% in children and adults. And a 2008 study performed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Arctic Investigations Program showed that in rural Alaska Native children, they found that these children living in fluoridated villages had less than half the amount of dental decay than those in non-fluoridated villages. Fluoridation of community water supplies is the most cost-effective approach to reduce dental decay in the population. Again, we already heard the 38-to-1, so $38 in dental expenditures for every $1 spent on fluoridation. So water fluoridation saves about $38 for every $1 spent. In terms of safety, water fluoridation has been used in the United States for more than 65 years. Hundreds of studies have looked for adverse health effects of water fluoridation on the public's health, and no adverse health effects have been demonstrated, including for increased risk of cancer, Down syndrome, heart disease, osteoporosis, bone fractures, immune disorders, low intelligence, renal disorders, Alzheimer's disease, allergic reactions, and the list goes on. In terms of the legal side, fluoridation has been thoroughly tested in the United States court system and found to be a proper means of furthering the public's health and welfare. No U.S. court of last resort has ever determined fluoridation to be unlawful. In terms of ethics, fluoridating water is an act of public beneficence. Discontinuing water fluoridation would be harmful to the public's health. The national trend in terms of fluoridation has been towards increasing community water fluoridation. From 2000 to 2004, over 125 U.S. communities in 36 states voted to adopt fluoridation. In 2010, 74% of the U.S. population, or just over 204 million people, lived in homes that were supplied with optimally fluoridated drinking water. Alaska's trend is going the wrong way, and this is very concerning. Anchorage began fluoridating in 1953. Subsequently, many Alaska communities came on board. Unfortunately, in 2007, Juneau discontinued fluoridation, Fairbanks stopped fluoridation in 2011, and Palmer discontinued in 2011 as well. We hope this does not happen in Anchorage. As community leaders, our responsibility is to first do no harm to the public. Discontinuing fluoridation in the Anchorage public water system would be harmful to the public's health. Based on the overwhelming body of scientific evidence in support of health and economic benefits of community water fluoridation, I encourage the municipality of Anchorage to continue to provide fluoridated water. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trombley?
Could you just restate your credentials again, please?
Sure. It's Dr. Joe McLaughlin. I'm the state epidemiologist. And the chief...
in layman's term, epidemiologist.
I'm sorry?
In layman's terms.
What's an epidemiologist?
Yes, just in layman's terms.
Epidemiology is the science of looking at the distribution and determinants of diseases in society. So
that's all I need to hear. Thank you.
Mr. Trainey.
Sir, is there any difference between the calcium fluoride, from the calcium fluoride and the sodium fluoride that we use? We've had numerous people say using sodium fluoride Because I think it's calcium fluoride that's naturally occurring. Is there any difference in how it affects the body?
That's a good question. So all additives used as water treatment, used at water treatment plants must meet strict EPA water quality standards that assure the public safety. Fluoride metabolism in the body is not affected by whether the fluoride is present naturally or in the added fluoride product. In Alaska, there are 2 fluoride products that are used. In Anchorage, we use sodium fluorosilicate, which is a dry additive, and then usually in the bush, we use sodium fluoride, also a dry additive.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
We have no other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nikki Bennett. Good evening.
Hi, I'm not quite that
It'll bend down. Just grab it, and there you go.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Nikki Bennett, and I represent the Alaska State Dental Hygienists Association. I'm the legislative chair, and we are in support of continuing water fluoridation. One of the things that I hear a lot about when we talk about water fluoridation is the emotional aspect. So often when people come up with a systemic illness that there's no explanation for, especially if it's an autoimmune disorder, they're looking for a reason. We're a society right now that likes to find a cause and a solution. Well, sometimes there's just no cause. Water fluoride is an easy target to blame for all of our society woes. If you follow the science, not the emotion, you'll find out that there are no proven health effects from water fluoridation other than skeletal fluorosis. In the normal low dose that we have in Anchorage, and that's recommended by the CDC, there are no negative health effects. The American Cancer Society's website, you can Google that. You can find out that there are no risk, no scientific facts proving water fluoridation and cancer. In addition, the CDC, one that I heard earlier, somebody speaking out in the lobby, was that the CDC says do not use fluoridated water to make infant formula because it's toxic. Well, actually, the CDC does not recommend that. The CDC actually states that any overuse of fluoride, and if you have a child who has a bottle in their mouth constantly, they're going to not have the right amount, the right dosage, and then they are at risk for mild skeletal fluorosis. It's not a contraindication. Also, you'll hear that the World Health Organization does not support water fluoridation because most countries in the world do not fluoridate water. Well, there is a reason for that. The reason is that most countries don't have the same community water systems that we have here in the United States. Let's face it, we have a higher standard of living than most countries out in the world. So is a community source of water fluoridation a good choice for those countries who don't have community water? Probably not. So they look at other recommendations, such as fluoridated salts, fluoridated milk, those types of services. I think that's pretty much it. I just want you to follow the science, not the emotion. There's so many scientific organizations, greenfacts.org, there's American Cancer Society, there's the American Dental Association, the World Health Organization, the CDC, the EPA, the FDA, I could go on and on. All of them have science-based information about the benefits of fluoride and dispute the misinformation out there. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no questions.
Great.
Sarah Schuftall-Cohn, Catherine Bates, Tom Hennessy.
And our next individual to testify is Sarah Schuftall. Sarah?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a citizen of Anchorage, as a mother, and as a dentist, I support the water fluoridation here in the city of Anchorage. I travel and work in rural Alaska and have been to communities that don't have fluoridated water. I treat those children that have a mouthful of decay. I refer them into the operating room to get treatment on those teeth. I just want you to know I've seen the effects of working without fluoridation, and I've seen the benefits of working in communities with fluoridation. I only have two hands. I know that prevention is much more cost-effective and beneficial to the residents of Anchorage than actually getting the treatment. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Bates.
Good evening. I'm here against the fluoride, and there's reasons for that. And so since we've had the CDC and the health department here and everybody else, let's go to their website. Under 1993, the CDC, this is on their website, under the, I don't know if the name of their thing is ATSDR 1993, Part A. When the bones absorb fluoride for several years, decreased amounts of calcium occur in the bones, and a constant thickening and or weakening of the bones can result, called skeletophilosis. Okay? In 2005, the EPA, 11 unions within the EPA, 2005, called for a ban on water fluoridation due to bone cancer. Again, in 2005, CDC, and this is on their official website, joined the ADA, that's the American Dental Association, and warned mothers not to give their babies under 12 months any fluoridated water. I don't know how they got away with not bathing those children. I want to say that in 65 years, the FDA has never approved this drug to be used on humans. It is rat poison. Okay? And there's many countries now that have eliminated, like 99% of all European countries have eliminated fluoride in their water due to the reduced amounts of cavities. There's no cavities anymore. It's like non-existent. And it's not from fluoridating the water. It's from fluoridated toothpaste. This fluoride's good for the teeth. It's not good for the body. And that's from 1970 when the fluoridated toothpaste came out. They have seen a dramatic decrease of cavities in fluoridated countries and non-fluoridated countries. And it has to do with the fluoridated toothpaste. What they found, the dental industry, ADA, what they found was when they put sealants on the cavities of the children, they can reduce the cavities by 60%, where fluoride is 18 to 50%. That's from 2002 on the ADA website. Also, I'd like to point out that the National Research Council, U.S. National Research Council, is part of the National Academy of Sciences, National Academy of Engineering, Institute of Medicine. And what they came up with was 5 very important things. 1, fluoride accumulates in the bones. 2, it damages tooth enamel. 3, increases the aluminum in the brain and lead in the blood. 4, inhibits antibodies from forming in the blood. And 5, confuses the immune system, causing it to attack the body tissues. This is all on questionable, unsubstantiable public health protocol. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for you. Ms. Dembowski?
Ms. Bates, I'm over here.
Oh, hi.
Quick question. Did you say that fluoride damages teeth enamel?
Yes, that's by the National Research Council, which is part of the National Academy of Sciences and the National Academy of Engineering and the Institute of Medicine. Yes, ma'am.
Well, full disclosure, I work at a dental office, and that has not been my experience.
It's called fluorosis of the teeth.
Well, that's fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There are no other questions. Tom Hennessy?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Tom Hennessy. I'm a physician. I work for the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. I'm the director of the Arctic Investigations Program, which is a field station located here in Anchorage. The agency I work for, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, strongly supports optimal water fluoridation as a safe and effective means for preventing dental decay in children and adults. So the position taken by the Assembly in support of water fluoridation is aligned very much with the expert recommendation from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. My program, the Arctic Investigations Program, has some local Alaska data to add to this discussion. Dental cavities are very common among rural Alaska Native children. We just heard from Dr. Schofstall about this, and this addresses Mr. Trainey's question. Up to 5 times higher the dental cavity rate in Alaska Native kids than comparable aged U.S. children of the general population. In 2011, we published a study that evaluated the dental health of over 350 Alaska children 4 to 15 years of age in communities that did and did not have water fluoridation. We examined their teeth, and we collected information on a range of habits, including brushing and soda pop consumption. In that study, lack of water fluoridation was the most important factor associated with cavity risk. Children from villages without fluoridated water had 3 times more cavities than children that came from villages that had fluoridated water, 3 times the risk. Many rural Alaska villages and cities are not using this safe and effective means to prevent dental cavities. However, that is changing as rural Alaska communities are looking for ways to address the epidemic of child caries throughout the state. Nome and Bethel have recently voted to reaffirm the use of water fluoridation. As a longtime Anchorage resident, as a parent, and as a public health physician, I'd like to thank the Assembly for your pro-fluoridation stance. This will be noticed by other communities in Alaska and make it easier for others to make the healthy choice of water fluoridation policies that promote good oral health. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Trainee.
Sir, just a quick question. We've had some email from people claiming that the fluoride leaches into their skin when they take a bath. We had one lady last time years ago that testified she had to take a bath in bottled water because she could feel it leaching into her body. Is there any evidence that it can enter a person's body by taking a bath in it?
I'm not aware of any evidence to indicate that. It's ingested.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. William Turner. And while we're getting William up, the clerk will read the next 3 names, but also if anyone has come in, we are having a sign-up sheet over to my left here. If you're here to testify, please go sign up. Mr. Turner.
Richard Braun, Greg Holstein, Tom Sutherland.
Good evening.
You want me to spell my last name?
Please.
Turner, first name William. I do not consent to fluoride in my water. I'm against it. Now, there's people before me, and I don't know these people, and we don't necessarily agree on these things. I think fluoride in our water affects each and every one of us, and each and every person is different. So there are some people who are more sensitive to it than others. I use the public water for coffee, for tea, for juice, just to go drink it. I've drank it all my life. And when I drink other water from a well or a spring, it's different. I guess what I'm getting at is that I've been medicated my whole life with this, and I don't agree with it. Do you believe that people are responsible for their own health, that they should have a choice in this matter?
Have you concluded, sir?
I believe so, yeah.
Thank you. Rick Braun.
Richard Braun. It's been more entertaining than I expected. Vote yes on this, please. If you follow logic of taking this out of the water because people don't want it, I guess we should do away with school vaccinations because some people don't want that either. But we make that mandatory, and that's a lot more invasive, maybe even a little more risky than a little bit of fluoride in water. Fluorine in water is natural. Most water has it. If you live on a well system, you probably got fluorine. It just comes from the rock that the water flows through. It's just a naturally occurring thing. Our bodies can handle it. It's only if you take a whole lot at one time that you're going to get the fluorosis they talk about, or the staining of the teeth. And the risk of that is pretty low. Well within tolerance, I think, compared to other things that we have for risk in this life. If we have an advisory vote, if it ever comes to that, I hope the Assembly can encourage some of the professionals, for example, that have been already here, to put some public service announcements so that the people who are going to vote on this actually know what they're voting for or against. They understand what the process is, or the chemistry of it is, and the health risks. Otherwise, they'll be voting in blind, and if they hear more hysteria in the news media or on TV and anecdotal stories that don't have backing than they do the actual scientific work that's been done and the results that they've found with it, then it isn't an informed vote. There's a question about calcium fluoride versus sodium fluoride. That's like asking, should you use sodium fluoride on your meat when you salt it, or should you use potassium chloride on your meat when you salt it? You're still getting chlorine. With the fluoride, you're still getting the fluoride. The calcium and the sodium it's all dissolved within the water in the form of ions, and it just flows right through you and goes down the porcelain, So it's not a problem. It's not a threat, at least from the chemistry standpoint of it all. If they're worried about fluorine, then they should watch out for dihydrogen monoxide, because that has a lot of hazard to it too if you analyze it. Again, I encourage you to vote for this, and if we need to, public service announcements. So it's an educated vote. Thanks.
Thank you. I have a question for you. Ms. Dembowski?
Mr. Braun, quick question. Are you a ratepayer of AWWU?
Am I a ratepayer? Chugach.
Chugach, okay.
Not the city.
I was going to say, so you're on well water, or are you on city water?
I'm on city.
Okay.
I used to be, when I lived in North Pole, I was on well water.
Okay.
Other places I've been on well water and fluoride water, because I've moved around the country a lot.
Okay, my point is, if you're on city water, then you are paying for the service because it's borne by the ratepayers. And being the cost is around 30 cents, 33 cents per ratepayer. Is that an appropriate expenditure in your mind?
I think so. I think there's good bang for the buck on that, as opposed to some of the other things I've testified in this chamber on spending, because we do have a spending problem, but it's good bang for the buck. And if you leave it up to the individuals who have to go out and purchase tablets if they want to give their kids to it, some people won't have the money. They won't take the time to do it. They'll forget to do it. The kids won't take it. And I think they're going to save money and have less trouble with their kids' teeth just by doing it in the city water.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Greg Hallstein?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I see we had a lot of professionals here from all sorts of agencies, but how many times have government agencies deemed products safe over the years? The FDA, the CDC, the EPA. I mean, look at the TV and you'll see law firms looking for people that have had health issues relating to products that have been approved by the FDA, the EPA, the CDC, and all these organizations. It's just another one of these products that it's going to follow that line. It just hasn't happened yet. That's why countries around the world are discontinuing fluoride. Cities around the United States are discontinuing. That's why Juneau, Fairbanks, Palmer discontinued, because it is a controversial issue, as Mr. Steele pointed out last meeting or 2 meetings ago. Why one day someone decided to add a product to the public's drinking water to benefit their teeth? Why just benefit their teeth? Why don't we just keep adding chemicals to benefit our hearts, our brains, or bones? Let's just keep adding chemicals. Let's not stop at the teeth if that's our philosophy here. If we want to keep increasing people's health, let's just keep adding chemicals to our waters. The bottom line is you can get it anywhere, any store, any grocery store, any corner store. If people want it, it's cheap. Toothpaste is cheap, mouthwash is cheap. Fluoride tablets, I've never bought them, but I'm sure they're not that expensive. But I don't know. I just think it's a sad day in this country when the people have to fight their own government to remove toxic waste from their water supply. That's all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, will you read the next three names?
Tom Sutherland, Allison Koulas, John Collins.
Good evening.
Good evening. My first time speaking. Well, as a U.S. citizen, I think I have the right to choose my own medication. And apparently, my government thinks it has the right to choose my medication, which I object to. If I want fluoride, I can choose to have fluoride. That should be my freedom of choice. Apparently, it's not. So I have to have the expense of having reverse osmosis systems in my house. I don't think that's fair. But that's what I have to do. Because if you do get on the internet, and I know there's a big joke about studying things on the internet, but there is a lot of controversy about fluoride. It's the main ingredient in rat poison. It's a neurotoxin. If it's for your teeth, why are we ingesting it in our whole body? Why, when we take a bath, are we absorbing it through our skin? And if it's controversial in any way, shape, or form, why are we putting it in our water? Where there is no controversy, because we're all drinking it. And we're all ingesting it. Even with my reverse osmosis systems, I'm still ingesting it, because when I take a shower, my skin absorbs it. And I'm paying for this water. I get a bill. And I said, well, who gave these guys the right to put this stuff in there? And I went to the AWW's site, and it says the Municipality Department of Health and Human Services tells the AWW, Anchorage Water and Waste Utility, to put it in on recommendation of the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Since when did they become a doctor? Does that make any sense to you? It doesn't to me. Well, I'm not saying I'm a health nut, because I'm not. I've got my bad habits. But I try. I try to, if I can buy organic and it's not too uncost feasible, I do, because I don't particularly like ingesting pesticides. But that's my choice. If I choose to go to the expenditure of eating what I consider healthier food, I can do that. Or if I say, well, this is just not cost feasible and I need to put something in my gut. Or if I just don't care and I'm going to put something in my gut like most Americans, that's their choice. We're supposed to be living in a free country. But our government right now is eliminating my choice. And that's un-American. And that's wrong.
Thank you. Allison Koulas. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair Hall and Anchorage Assembly. My name is Allison Koulas, and I'm here tonight to represent the Alaska Public Health Association, an affiliate of the American Public Health Association. The Alaska Public Health Association supports community water fluoridation as a long-standing public health approach to reducing dental decay. Tooth decay remains the most common chronic condition of childhood. It It is estimated about 51 million school hours are lost each year due to dental disease, along with pain and potential for systematic infection related to dental decay. Water fluoridation is the most efficient way to reduce dental decay in children. Adults and seniors also benefit from reduced dental decay with this public health approach, including those without access to regular dental care. Scientific studies show fluoridation reduces at least 25% of dental decay in children and adults. Due to the role of reducing dental decay, community water fluoridation was listed among the top 10 public health achievements of the 20th century by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Community water fluoridation has been utilized in the United States for more than 65 years as a population-based approach to reduce dental disease. Throughout this time, research and practical experience indicate the overwhelming scientific evidence has shown that fluoridation of water supplies to be a safe and effective public health measure. More than 100 organizations, including the American Dental Association, American Public Health Association, U.S. Public Health Service, American Medical Association, and World Health Organization have formally recognized the public health benefits of water fluoridation. On behalf of the Alaska Public Health Association, I encourage the Anchorage Assembly to continue support for water fluoridation in the Anchorage public water supply to ensure that every child has access, regardless of race, income, or home environment, to this preventative measure for quality oral health. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan Collins.
Elizabeth Ridnour, Melissa Brennering, Sean Tortolat.
Is that John Collins? It's John or Joan Collins. Okay, thank you. Elizabeth? Good evening.
Good evening. Sorry. My name is Elizabeth Ridenour. Thank you for having me. I'd like to state that I moved here from the peninsula. I'd also like to say that I think it was a mistake. I see that I have a very biased assembly here. And I very much am considering moving back to the peninsula. I liked my well water. I liked having the choice of not being poisoned against my will. I didn't have any cavities while I lived on the peninsula. I moved here in October of last year. Since I moved here, I had a cavity I had to have filled. That's while using city water. Fluoridation helps prevent cavities. Do you have toxicological studies on sodium fluorosulfate? Have you done any assessment on dental fluorosis in children? What about cost treatment dental fluorosis over a lifetime? I know that my two children that aren't here tonight have also developed cavities since moving to Anchorage. That's moving off of well water onto city water. I don't see how fluoridated water is preventing cavities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
As Melissa's guardian and conservator, she's 23 and nonverbal. This is Melissa Fremery. She does not give you her consent to medicate her without her permission.
Thank you. Melissa. Okay. Sean?
I'm Sean Tortolot, and I am against fluoride in city water. Is sodium silicofluoride safe and effective? Can any fluoridation person make that specific claim? I have lived where water was not fluoride, did not have fluoride in it, and I haven't had a cavity. And I moved to this city and I have gotten a cavity, but I'm not saying it's because of fluoride, but fluoride hasn't done anything to prevent it either. You guys do not have my consent to medicate me. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions. Sherry Mills and Michael Todd.
Good evening.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a lot of alphabet agencies that we hear one person say this person said that, this one said that. There's two sides to absolutely every story. And if you go into any of these alphabet agencies and look at what they have discovered, you're going to find another story, and you have to go deeper into that. The end result for me is you are here to listen to both sides. And I think that there is enough out there that if anything you should pause, as was said 2 weeks ago, to take a deeper look at this problem for all of us. We have a very, very, very varied population in this town. And each one of us is weakened by who we are, and putting something, when you begin to investigate the chemistry of what fluoride is, how it's been used in many different aspects, just in the sheer word fluoride on the periodic table, you will discover how it has been used in a multitude of different things that have been removed, that we should pause. We should take a look instead of passing as we have. To me, this assembly to continue to fluoride this town is backwards. It's not intelligent. You're intelligent people. And I hope that you take a look at this, because you have a responsibility to us all. From in every category possible. The only thing that I can have to say is at this moment I am standing here, I have entered death several times. You come back from that place and you wake up and you realize that there are certain moral obligations that we have to each other on this planet. And if this assembly just slips away and doesn't look deeper and continues to, as far as I am concerned, poison the citizens of your town, I am ashamed of you. I am ashamed of all of us who do not do something. This is very, very painful for me to come here, to take my time. I have a thick book going back 3 years when I was first here, with information in it that needs to be looked at. We do not need to waste the money. It crumbles the teeth. People have been paid off from the beginning. People have been educated in their universities with something for reasons of many different levels. Protect their business, protect the money. We need to follow the money, and we need to stop this. We need to pause and stop this, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Todd. Madam Clerk, would you read the next list?
Jason Agri, Sabrina Martino, Alberta Rich.
Hi, guys. Michael Todd.
Good evening.
Good evening. Heard more than one individual discussing bush communities and the rates of fluoride, or rates of instances of cavity and the percentages of cavities in these communities versus, say, a fluoridated community, a fluoridated water-provided community, such as Anchorage, for example. I don't know where the data came from or some of the information as far as it being concluded that fluoridated water was a major factor. I did hear something about soda pop. The diet of the rural communities is in dire need of improvement. Their foods are extremely expensive. This is a major factor. It's ridiculous to insinuate otherwise. Obviously, the level of dental care in these communities as well is a factor. I mean, it's really simple math. And so I'm just going to leave it at that on that one. We can talk about how bad the bush communities' dental care is and how their teeth are corroding to the points that they are, but it's other factors than fluoridated water. So that's a non-issue. At least in my mind, I can certainly identify a number of other factors that are far more influential. Fluoridation is unethical because it violates the individual's rights to informed consent to medication. The municipality cannot control the dose of the patient. The municipality cannot track each individual's response. It ignores the fact that some people are more vulnerable to fluoride's toxic effects than others. Some people will suffer while others may benefit. It violates the Nuremberg Code for Human Experimentation, as stated by the recipient of the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 2000, Dr. Arvid Carlsson. I am quite convinced that water fluoridation, in a not too distant future, will be consigned to medical history. Water fluoridation goes against leading principles of pharmacotherapy, which is progressing from a stereotyped medication of type 1 3 times a day to a much more individualized therapy as regards both dosage and selection of drugs. Mind you, he received the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 2000. He's got some credentials. The addition of drugs in the drinking water means exactly the opposite of individualized therapy. As he stated, medicine is moving in that direction. I heard something about a 1950s truck having no seat belts. There's a lot of examples of things from this era. Fluoridation is one of them. We used to bloodlet for healing headaches or ailments. We used to do a lot of electroshock therapy to people who were depressed. We used to do a lot of things.
I'm going to need you to conclude.
Oh, I didn't even hear it. I'm sorry. I'm getting worked up. Well, I'll conclude with the first examples of fluoridation being utilized in Nazi Germany in the death camps. And this was achieved through the Aluminum Corporation of America coming over there with Dow, helping to process their wastes through their manufacturing. That's where it began. I heard somebody saying something about where this all started. Shortly thereafter, they concluded, they being whoever makes the money and prints the money and is involved in influencing what happens in the world, that we needed to have some scientific studies that proved that it was healthy and good for teeth.
Jason Agri. Good evening.
Good evening, Assembly.
My name is Jason Agri. The sodium hexafluorosilicate that the municipality uses is not the naturally occurring calcium fluoride that is present on Earth. It is Mr. Dennis Wheeler, he did a study on this. I saw this memo, and he said it's 85 times more toxic, and that is true, but he was comparing NaF, which is one sodium molecule with one fluorine molecule, and that is 85 times more toxic than calcium fluoride. The hexafluorosilicate is more toxic than the single sodium, single fluorine molecule, because it has 6 fluorine molecules that are octahedrally aligned. And whenever you get an octahedrally aligned fluorine molecule, octahedral means top and bottom, side to side, and front to back. You're talking about highly active acid structure. And if you look this up, either way, I would like to see on the hexafluorosilicate that the city uses, I would like to see some due diligence and see if it's ever been safety tested for human consumption. And I think this needs to be looked at and dig deeper than just the manufacturer saying so, and ask for the manufacturers, human safety testing so that it's fit for consumption, because I believe it's toxic waste that you're putting in the water. And you may want to look into this and do due diligence on this. Whether you pass this resolution or not, I hope it doesn't mean that I still won't have your ear, and that I will still be able to be listened to, and that this does not shut anybody from further examination of this issue. And I hope that you don't pass it, but I'm not going to go petition and collect signatures for my human rights, because I believe that it's a human rights issue to not be medicated by chemistry through the water supply without your consent. And I hope that I don't have to go petition for my rights, because I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to talk to you people about my rights here, and I'm not going to take it to the street. So I would like to thank you for putting a resolution together, and I wish Mr. Flynn was here so I could thank him personally for putting this resolution up. So, thank you.
Thank you. Sabrina Martino. Good evening.
Good evening. Fluoride's being added to our water under the guise of a medical treatment. Adding it to the whole community's water supply without our informed consent, as others have said tonight, is unethical, and I feel like it's a violation of our civil rights. Has hydrofluorosilicate acid even been approved by the FDA? All my research has shown nothing to show that it has. Once you add it to our water supply, you can't control the dose, who gets it, how much, and it accumulates in our body. It's an endocrine disruptor. It can affect the bones, brain, thyroid gland, pineal gland, and even blood sugar levels. It's been linked to muscle disorders, arthritis, dementia, tumors, lower IQ, and even cancer. A lot of the dentists here tonight have said that it's not harmful. I'd like to know if they can explain what happened in '92 in Hooper Bay when 260-some villagers suffered fluoride poisoning. It's poisonous. Another dentist said it had no negative health effects. If it's not toxic, why does the toothpaste bottle say, "do not swallow," which we don't have the choice when it's added into our water? Here tonight to speak against it and prevent another occurrence like that from happening. And on line 28 of your paper that you provided us tonight, you're talking about placing an advisory vote on the ballot. Well, does any voter have the right to require their neighbor ingest a certain medication or drug? Do I have the right to say that you should take this medicine I don't think that that's right, and I disapprove of it being put in my water. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Alberta Rich is next, Kim Houston, Larry Young, John Lowe, or Lokes.
So I've been concerned about that there's fluoride added to the water and interested that I think 4 cities have voted it out in Alaska. Can you hear?
Yes.
So I would agree with the first gentleman that spoke that this be tabled while more investigation happens on it. And what would then be the process if it is tabled? Because I guess that means you don't vote on it tonight. You put it forward. Is that right? Can somebody answer me?
No, ma'am, we're here to listen to your testimony.
Okay, well, I'm asking a question. I can't ask a question.
Ma'am, we're here to listen to your testimony.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is I think it's a very complex question, subject, and that I would hate to see it voted on tonight. If it didn't go the way I wanted it to, which I don't know. And I would like, if it's tabled, is there a process that then happens before it comes here again? And can you table it? Is that even something you can do?
There's a number of actions that can be taken this evening, and I have no idea which the body will take.
Okay, well, that would be my suggestion.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for being here this evening. Do you realize that this is a resolution? It's not law, and it's not the Assembly voting on whether or not there's going to be fluoride in the water. Do you realize that?
No, I realize there already is fluoride in the water and just voting on whether to continue.
What I'm saying is, just so you understand,
okay.
And maybe you do, maybe you don't, that this is not an ordinance. It's not law. This is simply a resolution that is a statement for the record. Okay, to basically say that the Assembly is encouraging the public to go through the ballot initiative process. So it's not law. It's not a decision that we're going to make whether or not fluoride stays in the water or not. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that.
Well, I guess I'm confused about that.
Right.
But I'm interested in having it taken out of the water. I buy water.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Gray Jackson. Thank you. Kim Houston? Kim Houston? Larry, okay. Thank you.
Good evening. Kim Houston, KIMHOUSTON, and I have a lot of information, so I'm going to be speaking fairly quickly, so hope you can keep up. First, I wanted to address the statement that was made earlier in regards to fluoride not being absorbed into your skin. This is completely untrue. Any medical or professional should know this. As far as no evidence of chemicals being able to enter your bloodstream, there's plenty of evidence that at least 60% of what you put on your skin is absorbed into your bloodstream. Think about the nicotine patch, birth control patches, pain medicine patches. Those are all put on your skin. They're transdermal, and they're absorbed into your skin, into your body, and that's how they work. So same goes for any of the other chemicals that are hitting your skin. Next, as far as medical, I know a lot of people have been talking about different neurological, thyroid problems. I have all of these. This notebook here is over 15 years of medical tests to try to figure out what's causing the lesions on my brain, the thyroid disorder, the weeks when I can't even get out of bed. And I can quote from the Mayo Medical Laboratories in Rochester, Minnesota. They said environmental disorders. It's the environment. Chemicals in the environment are causing this. Next, if I wanted fluoride in my diet, I'd go get it I'd seek a medical professional to administer it to me. I don't need someone who doesn't know anything about it to make me and force me to consume it. The fluoridated water has a set amount in the water. There's no dosage amount specific for a person's age, health conditions, or any other factor that any other medication takes into consideration. You look at your tube of toothpaste, and right there on the tube, there's a poison warning right there. Keep out of reach of children under 6 years of age. If more than used for brushing is accidentally swallowed, get medical help or contact a poison control center right away. And you're putting that in our water and making us consume it. Not just spit it out, but swallow it and consume it. And then at the bottom it says, children under 2 years, ask a dentist. How many people do you think are taking their 2-year-old to a dentist or physician to see if it's okay if they drink the water? I stand here before you tonight to just please ask you to stop medicating and contaminating me without my consent. I will be watching all of you closely, and if I find another candidate to replace you, if you're not going to look out for the best interest and health of your constituents, I will do all that I can and work my heart out to find someone to replace you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Larry Young.
Good evening. My name is Larry Young. I'm here to express my opinions. I have several opinions on fluoride, none of which are good. I have a book here. I know each one of you has received several information pamphlets about the harmful effects that fluoride have done to you, so you can't say that you don't know what we're talking about. You just can't do it because there's medical proof. We showed you a video here of Dr. Dean Burke when we first had the debate about fluoride, and he was the head of the National Cancer Institute here in America from the late 30s to the early 70s. He stated that fluoridation is, as far as he's concerned, is mass murder. And so all these dentists that have come up before you that know nothing about cancer or any other thing that fluoride causes, I refute, and I encourage everyone that's here, that any dentist that came up here, to file a complaint against them, because it's unethical for them to come up here and encourage you to medicate us without our consent. So I encourage every medical professional that was up here, everyone that's in this audience, to file a complaint against them. I have a book here. It's a Home Guide to Plumbing and Heating, Air Conditioning. It's a Popular Science book, edition 1967, first edition. Fluoride being dangerous is no big secret, in all of the world. And in chapter 4 here, I just want to read you a little insert. Chapter 4 here, it says, your source of water. The location of your home usually determines whether you receive your water from a municipal water supply system or from your own well. Which is better depends on the local conditions. If extensive chemical treatment is employed to remove harmful bacteria from a municipal system, you may not enjoy the taste, but it can't be avoided. In other areas, the addition of various fluorides to the water in municipal systems is compulsory. If you have any physical condition that causes you to react unfavorably to these chemicals, you must, of course, use water from another source for your drinking and cooling, or you must install equipment to remove the fluorides. And I want to comment on the
I'm going to need you to conclude. Your time is up.
Okay, well, I'd like to say that the absorption rate, most of the households here don't have reverse osmosis systems in them. I know because I do plumbing and heating, and I'm all over Anchorage. Most of them don't have reverse osmosis systems, and yes, you absorb it through your body. Everyone does, through bathing, drinking, anything. The absorption rate's very high.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Locks. Next up will be Phil Isley. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is John Locks. I am the current vice chair of your Health and Human Services Advisory Commission. I stand up here today strongly in support of continued fluoridation of the water source. That has been the formal opinion of the Commission since my confirmation by this body in 2011. With that, I will waive the remainder of my time.
Thank you. We have no other questions. Mr. Isley.
Hi, my name is Phil Isley, I-S-L-E-Y, and I came down tonight just for the entertainment factor. I was listening to the radios this morning, and I noticed that you're having this meeting so that you can push forward that everybody gets a thought, but at the same time you sit back and you've already made up your mind on what you're going to do. And I just thought that was really ironic, and I had to come down and kind of watch the whole process just for the good part of it. The thing that I noticed while I was sitting here is that the argument they have that it's their body and they should be able to put in it what they want. If I was a woman standing here arguing with you about abortion and I said it was my body, I should be able to do what I want, most of you would probably agree with me. But if I stand here and tell you it's my body and I don't necessarily want to put fluoride in it, you're opposing me, and I'm not so sure I understand that concept. Of course, I did learn something by reading my tube of toothpaste, much like the other lady did. And if you have a different one like Sensodyne or something like that, it's even more. You can actually poison somebody with this. It's quite the deal. And as far as the 33 cents a month, I was at a community council meeting earlier this month, and during that meeting, a guy was talking about how he would like the senior exemption raised on his house because it hadn't been raised in over 30 years, and his house is worth a lot more money, and he'd like to stay here. And the general comment was, well, if we gave you that exemption, we would be at a loss of funds, and we would have to find another source of income. And I really think if you spent more time finding different ways to reduce the budget, even if it's only 33 cents per person per month, that if you did that every month consistently, maybe we could afford to allow our seniors to live here. But as long as we continue to find ways to spend money, we're probably going to have to look for alternate income sources. But I really wish you'd look the other way sometimes, because I don't have much of a house, but it costs me over $100 a month to give to you guys for things like fluoride, which I don't particularly care for. But on the list of things that will kill me, being an airplane mechanic, that's pretty low on the list.
I have a question for you, Mr. Isley. Ms. Dembowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. More of a comment, so I'll be brief. Mr. Isley, I came here with an open mind. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and I'm still not. So just put that on the record. And the other thing is I'm unapologetically pro-life. So I just want to be clear about that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our list of individuals that have signed up. I will show the courtesy of asking if there's anyone here to testify. Seeing, hearing none, this item is before the body.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to approve. Mr. Honeman.
Well, I thank Ms. Domboski for, I'm fairly new on the body here this past election, as is Mr. Steele. So I know that you've probably heard since you've been on the body in April a couple of end of session or end of meeting audience participation comments reference the subject. I will say that though I appreciate several of my colleagues with the quick bulleted references in this resolution, the Public Safety Committee, and as the chair of the Public Safety Committee now going on more than 3 years, we've spent an inordinate amount of time with public testimony, with gathering evidence, with gathering information, with trying to vet, to verify, to do research using legal and subject matter experts, community residents' participation. There have been submittals, and you yourself have seen many coming through on email forms, and several members of the community have come before this body to, again, vocally state their opinions on fluoride. Like Ms. Domboski, well, unlike Ms. Domboski, who works in the dental profession, I'm not. And so I have to rely on facts, evidence, information, and research. And so I will say that I'm always standing behind the members of the community's ability to use the ballot, referendum, petition, initiative process, because that's, in essence, our democratic way of doing our government, and that is giving your information, and it's the ultimate poll, really. I'm not in favor of this particular resolution because I don't think there was enough time spent with research and information and fact gathering and vetting of the data that we've received so far, and certainly we're willing to, and from a Public Safety Committee standpoint, to move forward with the information we have as recent, a little more than 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the legal review that we've asked to be done by the Municipal Attorney's Office. So I don't think I'll support the resolution, although I'm very much in favor of the community being able to voice their opinion on this matter. Thank you. Mr. Steele.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I've spoken before on the topic, and I think there's pros and cons on both sides of the issue. If you take it out, then you put some people at risk. If you leave it in, there is question as to whether or not some people will be at risk. In this country, we have fluoridated for some time, and the consensus is certainly from the supposed experts on the field, is that there's a benefit, a positive benefit to putting it in. If you take it out and you say, well, they can get fluoride somewhere else if they want to. Some will, some won't. Some can, some can't. You'd have to have a prescription for tablets. You'd have to, if you want to take it orally. You would have to buy the tablets, and I actually went so far as to go down and see what they cost. And, for 120 tablets, about $68. So 68 times 4 is what it would cost you for the tablets, plus the prescription. So I just have to come down on the side of, at this point in time, to continue the fluoridation. The amount that we put in is about half of what EPA says you can put in. And so I'll probably be a yes vote on it.
Mr. Starr?
Well, I got a question, I guess, for Mr. Honeman. When your committee structures, and we all have some various committee positions, and some are chairs and others, you know, I do the budget side of things, and we reach out a lot to the department heads for feedback. Have you reached out to some of the folks that have been in the audience here?
Quite a few, actually. I recognize several of the names.
Let me ask you, Dr. Tauschik with the AWW board position?
Actually, they came into a recent meeting, and Mr. Locks was there as well, and we've asked, because sometimes we've had some reluctance from the Municipal Health and Human Services Department to take an actual position on fluoridation in the drinking water in the Anchorage public drinking water system. But we've had folks from CDC, Public Health, the actual Public Health Director, Commissioner of Public Health for the state. We've done some extensive comment gathering and information gathering and vetting, but we're also waiting for the other component, which is legal, which has recently been completed. And I just feel fairly strongly that when we put a resolution together, particularly one that has been so, for lack of better terms, controversial or emotional or whatever, that we need to have a little bit more meat behind whether, just a resolution with a little AIM with some data, things that we have actually gathered and spent the time doing it. And we have spent an inordinate amount of time. And I realize, I've said it, I try to keep this body appraised occasionally on the status of where we were at with the issue of fluoride from the Public Safety Committee.
Thank you. And what I want to say now is appreciate that response, in particular the observation of Mr. Honeman as it relates to the process on how we got here. There was some of those comments, and I try to stay away whether or not fluoride's good or bad or otherwise, but how my ability as an elected official could influence that process. And I think we have to step back, as I do, rather than I'm talking to my folks here, is that we have to recognize where and when we can do the best job of representation of the folks that put us here, meaning they elect us. And there's various topics that ultimately they say, what are you going to do on my budget? How are you going to vote on the school district budget? How are you going to vote on a bond application? And those are challenges where I go out and I reach out to my communities and I engage them through various aspects. That's what we do here. I think the suggestion that the resolution bypasses some of that obligation, and no one said it here, but I don't think it really does. I think it says in the resolution, well written. Mr. Honeman, you didn't write it, so I don't think it's a consensus document. That's clear. But I think the idea that this has been in front of us, we've heard it, the observations that all those folks that speak to us at the public opportunity to speak, I listen. I'm not moved to action. I don't find it's my job to represent my constituents that way. We've seen various elements of different opportunities to override that decision. In this case, it's a decision to do nothing. But we've seen action items where I've decided things, and they have been now challenged in court. They've been moved through petition items. I think perfectly valid. Quite frankly, am I irritated that I get overridden as an elected official? Initially, because I work pretty hard at it. But I'm also empowered that folks are starting to step up and engage their government at various levels. And I think that's really the essence of what I really take away from today is that keep up that initiative, that petitioning. It's not a petition for your rights, it's a petition for action. You're not getting any action from this body or from me. I don't speak to the body, but from me, I'm not moved to action. So petition my action. Put it to the ballot. Let the voters decide. I think that's a great aspect of government. And I guess as frustrating as it may be, the hours and hours of that it finally is overturned at the ballot or the voters have spoken, more power to that process. I think it's engaging our government as opposed to going the other way, leaving it all up to me. So thanks for that. I appreciate the debate, the dialogue, the historical knowledge, the folks that are there that keep us on edge with the topic. It's enlightening. I'm going to support the resolution from a positive perspective. Thank you.
Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I'd like to thank everyone who came out this evening to air their comments on this resolution. And that's the reason why I asked for a public hearing, because I thought that the folks in this community deserved of anew to speak on the issue. But, you know, like I said earlier, this is a resolution, and it's not an ordinance, it's not law, and we're not here this evening to make a decision on whether or not fluoride is kept in the water or not. It's just a statement of record with the Assembly. There's a statement in here with the Assembly supporting continued use of fluoride, and then encouraging those that don't want fluoride in the water to consider a ballot initiative process. And I appreciate Mr. Starr's comment on that subject matter. But I don't think there's a sentence in here that talks about the Assembly supporting the continued use of fluoride. I really don't think that I want to air my personal opinion as part of this resolution. I don't think that my personal opinion should be included in this resolution at all. And with that said, I don't plan to support the resolution based on the comments that I just made, although I thank the authors for bringing it forward, which allowed folks to come out and talk about the issue. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Trombley.
When Mr. Flynn first approached me about co-sponsoring this resolution, the conversation that we had was to increase public involvement, was to increase the discussion amongst the people. And one of the most disheartening things I heard tonight was the individual who came up and said, I'm not going to take this to the streets. I'm just going to continue to petition you. Well, taking it to the streets, getting it on the ballot, and having an advisory vote is petitioning your government. That's the point. Bring it to us. Tell us what the public thinks. As Mr. Starr said, this body's not moved to action. But it is important to plead your case to the people. That's part of our system. That's part of our government. And that's the reason for this resolution. It's saying, like, look, we're not at this time going to do anything. But bring it to the people and let the people, by a majority, tell us what to do. That's what we're elected to do. That's what we're elected to represent. And so that's my hope. I want to see more public involvement in this, and I want to see you plead your case to the people. And I want to see the results in April.
Mr. Trenny?
I've heard nothing in this testimony that gets me to change my point of view on this. I've been through this numerous times. We've had the same people come up and say the exact same thing. So I'm going to vote for this. And this, as LB said earlier, this voting for it against it doesn't pull the fluoride out of the water. If this goes to public advisory vote, that still doesn't pull the fluoride out of the water. Ultimately, it's this body that has to decide whether fluoride goes in the water or not. Not Health and Human Services, it's this body that has to decide that. So I'm going to be a yes vote on this.
Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I, too, appreciate all the discussion and debate tonight. Just want to explain a little bit about line 29, just so people understand the change from the original version to the S version. I originally drafted this to encourage placing an actual ballot initiative that could change the law on the ballot.
Can't do that.
However, in consultation with counsel, I learned that would most likely be opposed legally and not be upheld, and therefore a better route was to encourage the advisory vote so that we're not encouraging something that the petitioners couldn't actually do. That would be somewhat disingenuous. That's the reason for that change. Other than that, all the conversation speaks for itself. I appreciate it all, and I'm ready when you are, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Dembowski?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like a member from AWW to come up if they could for just a minute.
I'm Richard Seckel. I am the treatment director for AWW.
Thank you, Richard, for staying with us tonight. And he's working in Brett's stead, in case anybody's wondering. But AWW did provide me the cost breakdown of the cost of the fluoridation program in the city of Anchorage. And I passed it on to all the assembly members. I think everybody had it. Can you explain to us if eventually we take fluoride out of the water, what real cost savings will there be in the overall picture?
Initially, there would be a cost savings on the first year we removed it for the price of the chemicals itself. Somewhere around $45,000 would be our average cost per year. There are additional costs that go with it. Those costs would still be incurred by the ratepayers of Anchorage, the utility and the ratepayers. So the initial increase or the initial savings would be the actual cost of fluoride. With the chemical, or excuse me, I use the term chemicals. We use a number of different products in our treatment processes. But the cost increases that we're seeing year over year, that $45,000 savings that we see the first year will be quickly absorbed through the cost of the other products that we're using. So the 3 cents a person per month that we quote, or 33 cents per resident, will not show up as a savings over the long haul. In fact, it'll be absorbed very shortly by the additional costs of the other products.
Okay, and so just for clarification, this cost is borne by the ratepayer of AWW.
That's correct. It's broken out because the ratepayers bear the cost, but the residents of Anchorage consuming the water share the benefits, or as some have testified, the problems that come along with it. So we try and describe it by the residents who are consuming the water, but the ratepayers pay it.
Sure, and if you were saying the savings would probably be negligible with the increasing costs of other things, so it's not something we could save the money here and reappropriate it to another city service.
Theoretically, you could. I mean, the cost that would be saved by the cost of chemicals will go to offset other costs. And that's what I'm saying. The cost will be, we saw a 15% cost increase this year in chlorine alone.
I guess my point was the other costs within AWW, though.
No.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. That's correct.
Okay. That was my only question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. No one else in the queue, please vote. That motion passes 9-2. That concludes our items on the agenda for this evening. I am going to read a statement from the chair prior to audience participation. Past practice has been to allow a person to testify under audience participation on an item that has already had a public hearing absent special circumstances. Allowing someone to testify twice would basically double all contentious public hearing items. It would create additional burdens for the clerk's office. The municipal code is silent. The chair makes the rules, subject to being overruled by the majority. In this case, the chair is making the rule that persons who testified on issue earlier tonight on fluoride or any other topic may testify again under public participation on the same topic. With that read into the record, we are at audience participation. Anyone to testify?
Point of privilege. Mr. Chair, I'd like to object to your ruling.
You're going to need a motion to overrule.
I move to overrule the chair's ruling that people can't testify on the same issue.
Second.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Slark.
Clarify that. Is that actually what you said?
What I said is what we've always done in past practice. If you've testified earlier in the evening on a topic before the body, you don't testify again under public participation. Public participation is for items other than what are on the agenda.
Sure, I understand. But you don't object to them coming to the next meeting and speaking
Absolutely
on the
not.
same topic? Or...
Absolutely not.
Sure.
It's just always been a practice that on the night that we're holding a meeting, if you've testified on an item that evening, you do not testify again during public participation.
Thank you.
Mr. Trainee.
Mr. Chairman, but we've never made that apply once the item is off the agenda. As the last resolution is now off the agenda, we have nothing in front of us. So people can come out and testify on anything they want, to include fluoride. But what you're saying is you're denying them the ability to come up here and speak on fluoride if they want, or the dog poop in the city streets if they feel like it.
Mr. Trainee, what I'm saying is a practice that when you were chair, you applied the same practice. If we had an item on the agenda that evening and people testified on it, when it came to public participation has always been for items other than what has been on the agenda that evening.
Okay.
Ms. Dembowski? I'm sorry, we already got you. You have a motion and a second. Ms. Dembowski has voted to override the rule of the chair. Please vote. That motion passes 7-4. So the body has decided that we've got the floor open to whomever wants to testify on whatever topic.
Excellent. My name's still Daryl. Excuse me?
Could you have your last name, please?
My corporate person name, is that what you're looking for? Or my clan name? Well, my name is Daryl, it's my name. My clan name is Lanzon. I renounce the corporate person, just so you know. I'm sure it's kind of beyond you people, but again, my name is Daryl Lanzon. Anchorage Municipal Code, which is what I believe you people are supposed to be following. Mr. Wheeler, I hope you're paying attention. Title 2, Chapter 2.5 addresses the problem with this resolution. You cannot force us. If you want an advisory petition, if that's what you want as a body, then you put it on the ballot. If the public body is going to petition for something, it's a binding petition, and that's in your code. It's not, I didn't make that up. That's librarymunicode.com, index, ASXP, etc., blah, blah, blah. That's your code. Now, you can expect an email on this from me with a lot of technical kind of things, because at this point I'm acting as a private attorney general. Mr. Trombley's probably going to like this because he likes reading this kind of stuff, so he might want to look it up. I know I sent you guys an email today about due diligence. You failed miserably today. Mr. Honeman, I want to thank you. You seem to be like you could be that champion that's looking for due diligence here, that is willing to look at all of this, because the simple fact that this body found it necessary for a citizens task force on the public hearing process. So they have 8, I was here last Tuesday, 8 people up here talking. I'm sure you guys saw me because I was the first person, and I talked about how the due process has been, how I've been treated by this body. You found it merit to have a committee set up, task force, to study the public hearing process, but you don't find merit to have a committee, a task force set up that has something that could potentially have adverse health effects. If you have kidney issues or thyroid issues, it does have adverse health effects. As far as no studies being, I've got one up here, there's lots of them, I'll send it to you again, you can ignore it again, but they're out there. Okay? How I will be approaching you from now on will not be with science. It will be with due diligence. It will be a legal angle. You can expect and appreciate that. One of the things that was probably most disheartening to me, as a person that is supposed to be respected by you, that's been coming here time and time again, I found out about the decision from Mr. Wheeler through a reporter. You guys didn't even have the courtesy from August 16th to inform a person who has been involved in this process for 2 years now. That to me is a slap in the face, not only to myself, but to the process. I've taken the time to come here. I have sent you an email or 2 every week for a year. Go ahead and check them. Okay? And then you insult me, the movement, and the process by your actions tonight.
Thank you.
Didn't expect any questions. Courage.
I would like to point out that the municipal attorney has pointed out to me that it takes over 8 to override a decision of the chair. That was a 7-4 vote. So the rule of the chair applies. If you've got a topic other than fluoride that you want to testify on, sir, you're more than welcome to do it.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not directly related to fluoride. Constitutional rights. We should have the right.
If you could speak into the microphone, please.
Constitutional right should give us the right to choose what we want to put in our bodies. You're taking away that right. That would be non-constitutional. Now, if a public entity acts as a doctor without an MD's license and without the permission of the patient, you are also breaking the law. And I would imagine subject to lawsuits. And I'm trying to determine, okay, we got the AWWU that does what it does because it's being told what to do. And then, you have to go down and go, okay, who actually initiated, who's the power, and I'm not as smart as some of these guys that have been political most of their life because I haven't. But I do know what breaking the law is. I know I can't act like a doctor without an MD license. I can't act like a contractor without a contractor's license. Now, a government entity that is acting like a doctor because this substance is medication and everybody's acting like doctors and you're acting like it's all right to be doctors. Well, you don't have a license to do that and you don't have permission of the patient. I would say that would subject whoever's initiating this, because I wouldn't say AWW is directly, well, somewhat responsible, because they are in coercion with the ultimate responsible parties, but there is definitely laws being broken here, and that's obvious to me. So I guess I was thinking for me, instead of a ballot initiative, to start a lawsuit against the city of Anchorage or whatever, because you guys are acting like doctors, and you're not. And I'm not your patient because I never agreed to be your patient.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone at all?
Good evening, Assembly. I would like to thank Elvie Gray Jackson and Paul Honeman for basically encouraging my faith in government on this issue, because I looked at this as a litmus test. I grew up in the Netherlands, and my grandma, she really did not like tyranny. She was forced to watch the execution of 20 young men. I know my time is not over
your
yet.
time's not up.
She was forced to watch the execution of 20 young men in 1945, together with my mom, who was 13 at the time. And she would roll around in her grave to hear what the members did on this issue tonight, because she was also very much against fluoridation, and she helped get fluoridation out of the Netherlands. And I'm doing this for my grandma, and for basically, I really oppose this forced medication. I really oppose it because it's a human rights violation. It's a human rights issue. And you don't seem to get that. You don't seem to get that. Like Mr. Flynn, you don't get it especially because you never make eye contact, and you even walked away when I made comments earlier. And you just like, Jesus Christ, you know.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Elvie. Thank you, Paul Honeman, for encouraging, you know, give me a little faith in the process here, but not much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, folks. My name is Michael Todd. Someone left their smartphone here. I don't know who's that. I think that might be Daryl's. Wanted to just speak on some of the history I have as a human on this planet we live on, and as an American citizen, which a lot of definitions that you could throw at that. With that said, I woke up to the realities of the life we live in 1993, and I asked my family, as many people as I could get together in that room, why they allowed me to go to school, learn the things that they're teaching in schools, when having shown them multiple different books that describe the state of America, where we're going as a nation, in a far different light than what government courses and the general dogma of education we provide to our children teaches. They all kind of looked at me. I asked why it is that they allowed me to go to these schools and be taught these things. It's brainwashing, quite literally. When they were aware of these books, they believed the books. None dare call it conspiracy to be one of them, from Gary Allen. There are a number of other sources of excellent information that break down the history of where we're at right now as a nation. Nobody said anything. They didn't know what to say because they knew I had a point. The only person that stood up was my grandfather, World War II veteran, and he had a smile on his face, and he said, "Now you're thinking." It comes down to being told the truth or being lied to by someone staring you right in the face. A medical expert earlier tonight made a false statement that I know he knows better. There's no question in my mind that he's aware of the fact that your skin absorbs chemicals at a percentage rate that allows, on the other topic, one to be exposed. With that said, someone looking me in the eye and telling me it's raining while they're pissing down my leg is something I've always had a real problem with. And knowing I was taught things that weren't true by an educational system that's broken, propagated by a governmental system that is flawed, is something that I resent as a citizen. I'm an American. I was born in Alaska, lived here my whole life. But I just find some real problems with where we're going. Tomorrow's the anniversary of September 11th, 2001. I'd recommend, if you haven't taken the time to research that topic, to do so. There are things that have occurred that day that you cannot explain through engineering of buildings. They don't collapse in the way that they did that day. So take a look at Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. They've got a great website, ae911truth.org. Something is going on that allows what's happening, that is forming the history that we know as the reality we live. People are in control, and they're making decisions that influence where we're going.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Kim Houston again. I was listening to what all of you said, and I don't know, I found it kind of intriguing that Assemblyman Steele said he'd like to continue the fluoride because it could be too expensive for some people to get a prescription for fluoride tablets. If you need a prescription for it, that means it's
we've
a
moved off the
medication.
topic of fluoride.
Okay. You know, I just want to say it's unfortunate for those of you who want to continue to do it, and it might take you or a loved one getting sick before you change your mind, and I don't wish that on anyone. So I hope you'll reconsider this. And
Thank
I hope
you.
that you'll get better support, your constituents, your city. We voted you in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
First topic would be village health, I guess. As far as cavities in the villages go, I mean, I've spent many, many years in the villages. I've been all over the state, spent a year in 5 or 6 different villages and 6 months in some, and they mainly eat processed foods. They don't have access to grocery stores. They don't have access to the whole organic foods that we have access to in the cities here. So as far as the dental health, processed foods are probably the number one reason as far as dental problems out in the villages. And I don't think I talked to my mom about what I was going to say tonight. She advised me against saying this, but I'm going to say it anyways. But do you really think the Nazis fluoridated their water for the benefit of the teeth of the prisoners? No.
Anyone else?
Hi, Sabrina Martino again. After we were talking about fluoridation of water, Ms. Dembowski, you called somebody from AWU to come up and talk about cost
You know, ma'am,
analysis.
I keep making a point. We're done with fluoride for this evening.
I just wanted to oppose any other chemicals that you might anticipate on putting in the water if you do decide to quit medicating us with fluoride. They said that they were going to add other things. I don't think that that's ethical either. I don't think that we should be putting anything in our water. It should just be natural.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone at all? If not, the chair will take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Stand adjourned.